This video was brought to you by Nebula. A lot of people in the lead up to Season 2 of Andor were like, Lady Knight the Brave, are you gonna make a video on Andor Season 2? And I was like,
You betcha, baby.
I mean, realistically, I was like, we'll see. I really wanted it to be good and meaty and something to talk about, but who really knows what will happen? After the first 3 episodes, I was pretty much like, yeah, this is happening, so...
I'm here to serve cookie and talk about Andor, and I'm all out of cookie.
In the lead up to Season 2 of Andor, after an emotionally turbulent 2024 with many personal losses, and a politically frightening 2025 in the US, which feels like it's getting worse every day, I viewed the upcoming second season of Andor kind of like an oncoming train. After the first teaser, I avoided trailers and listening to people theorize about it because I knew I had already built up too much stuff in my head just from watching Season 1. And so whether this season was what I wanted or not, I knew the train would surely demolish me upon its arrival. My emotional attachment to Cassian Andor at this point is such that just seeing the boy kind of makes me implode a little bit. I love him, I'm sad about him, I wish he got more hugs, he's done nothing wrong in his life, oh look, he just murdered a man, look at my perfect angel. But also, I was so ready for more of this.
Yo, what you know about an uprising, dog? What you know about an uprising right now, dude?
And more of this.
Laws are threats made by the dominant socioeconomic ethnic group in a given nation. It's just a promise of violence that's enacted, and police are basically an occupying army. You guys want to make some bacon?
So I'm not going to spend quite as long running down everybody's filmographies because I did do that on the Season 1 video, which you are welcome to watch. This is actually the first time I'm covering individual seasons of something, so I hope it doesn't suck, but Season 2 of Andor was released in 3-episode increments from April 22nd to May 13th, 2025. The story is the continuing adventures of the titular Cassian Andor leading to the events of Rogue One. Also, just for clarity, and so I don't have to constantly say the third arc and the second arc and so on, I've dubbed the first arc the Mina Rao arc, the second the Coruscant arc, the third the Gorman arc, and the fourth the Farewell arc. This is mainly for me, since I haven't found better names online, and I was getting really tired of just writing out the numbers for these arcs, when last seasons were really easily named. Tony Gilroy is back as showrunner and writer of the first 3 episodes, along with his brother Dan Gilroy, who wrote the Gorman arc, and Beau Willimon, who wrote the Coruscant arc. The only new writer this season is Tom Bissell, who wrote the Farewell arc, and whose credits mainly seem to be video games like some of the Uncharted's and What Remains of Edith Finch. The directors this year are a new batch. The first 6 episodes were directed by Ariel Kleiman, who had directed a bunch of random episodes of TV for stuff like Yellow Jackets, The Resort, and Top of the Lake. Also this movie called Partisan with Vincent Cassel. The Gorman arc was directed by Janus Mitz, a Danish director whose work I'm completely unfamiliar with, but he seems best known for some features like Borg vs. McEnroe and All the Old Knives, and he directed an episode of True Detective. The Farewell arc was directed by Alonso Ruiz Palacios, a Mexican director whose films include La Cocina, Museo, and the 2021 docudrama A Cop Movie. The cast includes returning actors like Diego Luna, Stellan Skarsgård, Elizabeth Dulao, Denise Goff, Kyle Soler, Catherine Hunter, Genevieve O'Reilly, Faye Marseille, Varada Setu, Forrest Whitaker, Duncan Powell, Muhammad Baer, and Adria Arjona. And I'm very sorry for butchering her name in the video for Season 1, as well as my Pacific Rim video. I was just incorrectly confident I was saying her name correctly for like 5 years. Alan Tudyk, Ben Mendelsohn, and Alastair Petrie also come back to reprise their roles from Rogue One, and we have Benjamin Bratt stepping in to play Bail Organa. I don't know if it was because of scheduling conflicts or something, but I think he did a fine job. Also, Star Wars needs to start recasting its legacy characters for the love of God. If I'm forced to see a weird CGI de-aged Mark Hamill again, I may be moved to violence. So with that, let's talk about the Mina Rao arc. Cassian's part of this arc might be the silliest thing Andor's ever done, after an incredible scene of him basically doing the hard sell on this woman who is about to defect from the Empire. Like, for real, this is Season 1 Ferrix energy just being directed towards a good cause.
You're coming home to yourself.
Also, Cassian said stay woke, like what that word is actually supposed to mean.
Nervous is good. Keeps us awake.
There's also one of those moments that feels so real and all the more uncomfortable for it when this random Imperial lady passing by observes that Cassian is hot, which, like, yes, I also have eyes, but coming from somebody who would just as easily throw him in a prison like Narkina 5, it's very unsettling. So all of that is fascinating, and then Cassian spends this arc having Goofus and Gallant adventures. Seriously.
You got 15 blasters pointed at you right now!
Don't tell him that!
He's surrounded!
The number? The actual number?
Are you kidding?
Seriously, my notes are like Goofus and Gallant ship. Goofus and Gallant as planet.
What was that? It's not.
Yes, I took notes. It's ridiculous. I do love the idea that the Empire is purposefully building ships with, like, inverted controls so only pilots that have been specially trained can use them, but yeah, Cassian gets on this ship, discovers he can't fly the thing, pinballs around a Star Destroyer, and then some other crap to land on this ridiculous planet with these rebels that I described in my notes as Goofus and Gallant Catch-22 Heart of Darkness bullshit.
Everything means everything.
I don't know why I kept writing Goofus and Gallant, that's just what it felt like, I stand by it. Cassian came here to hand off this stolen ship to a guy named Porco. Yes, that is another glub shitto for the books. I will always laugh at every dumb Star Wars name they give me, but apparently these guys killed Porco and are now stuck on this planet because of shenanigans. Also, we now know rock, paper, scissors exists in this universe, so we can put that one to bed. But because it's Star Wars, they are using it to decide who gets to be captain or who gets to be shot, I don't know. But crucially to the themes of the season, they are so wrapped up in their own drama, they are missing the forest for the trees. Pun maybe intended. They all seem to think they've got main character energy, but they're all so stuck in their personal pettiness that they are forgetting about the cause that supposedly unites all of them. Cassian is just stuck there being held at gunpoint and staying hydrated like a king, waiting for his moment to sneak away so he doesn't get shot. When he finally gets out of there, we pull out to reveal, oh, it's Yavin. God, I wish we could have seen the scene when Cassian realized he had to come back to this place. But meanwhile, the family has settled on Mina Rao in this farming colony, and like...
If they're checking visas, we have a problem.
He knows that.
This is a plotline about immigrant farmers being at risk of deportation or worse. Bix is still dealing with the trauma of being tortured last season. She has these nightmares about Dr. Gorst. It's horrendous. Brasso is there, he's got a girlfriend Talia, she seems nice. Woolman is there, he's got a crush on a girl named Bila.
Can he just be normal?
Hello, Bila.
But love in the time of fascism is hard, so this will be a problem when the Empire shows up. Also, her parents don't want her dating him because he's undocumented, I guess.
We're toolies.
There's all kinds of people here.
Yeah, with shares and visas.
We never bring up that other lady that was on the shuttle with them last season. Jezzy, I don't know what happened to her. But my best boy Bimo has a droid friend and Mrs. Cassian.
I was waiting. And here I am. No, not for you. Cassian.
He'll be back soon.
And for the moment, we see the home they've all managed to scrape together, and it's nice. But of course, everything goes to hell when the Empire shows up for a supposed routine inspection. There hasn't been one for years, apparently, and the vibe is, let's go harass some locals and any undocumented folk, just because they can. Also, because Pizzos were a drug we learned about in Season 1, I cannot stress enough that a cop walks into this grocery store and asks for weed.
Got any Pizzos? Sorry.
But the worst is this one supervisor guy who takes a special interest in Bix. It reminds me of the Imperial who observed Cassian was hot. It's the discomfort of being noticed in that way by someone who has the power to hurt you. And unfortunately, in this case, after attempts at charm that are extremely greasy, he does try to hurt her.
He tried to rape me.
He even says before he tries it that he knows she's undocumented and that farms need the workers, and so he has to make decisions, and it's so hard for him. Then he tries to assault her, and Bix manages to beat his ass, but it's a rough scene. I appreciate it mainly because it communicates the violence being attempted without getting graphic. Obviously Disney wouldn't allow them to, but this is the rare case where I think the constraints made for a scene that still communicates the horror of the act without showing the actual act, making it hopefully less upsetting for survivors of sexual assault who prefer not seeing that sort of thing. But while this is going down, Brasso is trying to find Willman because they're planning to bug out to another sector. This guy, Kellen, knows Luthen and clearly has been helping them all get settled here, and he gave them a bogus repair order for cover, but when stormtroopers see a guy running and looking sketchy, they just grab him. Willman, meanwhile, is trying to just say goodbye to his cute girlfriend. It really has the energy of like, what if you had a high school crush while the government wants you dead? I'm sure nobody can relate to that right now. But Willman wasn't where he was supposed to be and runs off to meet the others. And Brasso, being held by the troopers, gets thrown in front of Kellen, and I love how Brasso tries to protect him by putting on a whole show here.
Use us up. Turn us in. I'm gonna kill you.
You're betraying bastard!
This is about when Cassian shows up. After getting off Yavin in the stolen TIE fighter, he called Clea and she told him they couldn't contact Mina Rao and to wait for instruction, and Cassian said screw that and went straight to Mina Rao and the stolen ship. So he shows up and starts tearing up the place, shooting up troopers, blowing shit up. It's pretty fun watching their own weapons get used against them, but also,
I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them.
Just putting that out there. Brasso takes advantage of the chaos to run. Bix and Willman catch up and head for the chaos, knowing it's Cassian. And when Cassian is able to land the ship and run out there, he sees that Brasso caught a bullet. He's already dead and gone, and there isn't even time to mourn him because they have to run. There wasn't even time to get BMO, they just had to go. Like, okay, we know he's with Talia, and we know she's nice, but truly, they had to leave the dog back at the farm, and it's sad as hell. Meanwhile, in the courtly drama that is Mon Mothma's life, her daughter Lita is getting married. She's becoming the trad wife she always wanted, and this wedding is full of expensive and extensive pageantry. Apparently, traditional Chandrillin weddings run for 3 days and get boozy. One of the fascinatingly tragic moments comes when we see Lita crying because this boy won't hold her hand. And like, they are both children who should not be getting married, but the conservative norms of this culture say they should, and so when Mon actually tries to talk to her daughter and stop the wedding, Lita turns her down.
I wish you were drunk.
Mon hasn't been able to be present enough in her daughter's life to sway her from this path. It's really sad. Meanwhile, remember Tay Kolma from last season? He helped her with all those financial woes that come from secretly funding rebellion insurgency. Now her tracks have been effectively covered, but apparently Tay has fallen on hard times.
Everyone seems quite pleased with how they've landed, and I'm left wondering about the risk I've taken on.
And he's a little bitter now.
You know, the irony is, it's the rebellion that's hurt me most. Rebel activity soured my investments.
Mon Mothma is like, it's fine, we can sort this out after this stupid wedding. But Luthen is also there, along with Clea. They're there because the soon-to-be father-in-law, Davos Skulden, apparently had like a whole scumbag Indiana Jones adventure off-screen, possibly with Luthen, to get this statue as a gift for the bride-to-be and family. So Luthen's just there to deliver the statue and spy in character as the sleazy antiquities dealer. But he's there, watching everything go down with Tay, and so he tells Mon that they are going to have to deal with him.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
How nice for you.
And everybody online has made this joke, and I cannot improve upon it, so Tay Kolma absolutely gets iced by his Uber driver, i.e. Cinta. Vel is at the wedding because she's Mon's cousin, so she gets to see Cinta and be sad.
Here we go, lesbians!
Also, this isn't the most important thing about this plotline, but I need to shout out this gay disaster moment between Vel and Clea.
Just two single women surveying the prospects.
I don't know how else to interpret this scene except that Clea was making a pass at Vel. Like, I swear to God, I see enemies to lovers potential here. I'll return to this point later. In the end, Mon Mothma has a crash out, drinks like 12 space margaritas, and panics at the disco while her childhood friend is murdered by the rebellion. I wish I remembered the Tumblr post that made a version of that joke first, but it's a very accurate summary. If anybody actually knows that post, please comment and link to it. I'll put it in the info. And if you were wondering what the fascists were up to for this arc, it's time to go to the Wannsee conference in space!
Space!
I literally made the note that it felt very Wannsee conference, and then I read quotes from Tony Gilroy that went, yup, it's that conference, and I went, holy shit. So, for the uninitiated, here's a quote from Gilroy on the Wannsee conference.
I want to do a comp for when the Nazis got together and over a power lunch and had trout and decided to kill 6 million people and kept notes, as they do. And that's a real thing.
If you want to learn more about the history, just watch Conspiracy from 2001. Most of it is adapted directly from the transcripts of the meeting, and it's properly horrifying. In Andor, we see the Imperial propagandists lay out how they are already swaying public opinion on the people of Gorman. And Orson Krennic is there, explaining that it's all for this mineral calcite that they need for the Imperial Energy Program. I mean, Krennic being there told me pretty much everything, but put a pin in that for later. Basically, they're going to frack this planet to death, and the local population is going to be an inconvenience that needs to be dealt with. Dedra is there, and Krennic asks for her opinion, and she says what they need are rebels who they can trust to do the wrong thing. Meanwhile, Cyril has convinced himself that he's doing the most important work at the Space DMV, and then he, Dedra, and his mom Edie have the world's worst dinner party. And look, when these three are in a room, I'm rooting for Edie. All she is a bad mother. She isn't going to harm potentially millions with her bullshit. Also, every Jewish person I know says she reads like a stereotypical Jewish mom. I don't like it, I've been ignoring it this whole time, but when my mom and dad separately mentioned it to me, I was like, ugh, okay, yes, it's very there. I hope it was unintentional, especially when Gilroy describes her like as a sort of an alpha predator chaos machine in a box in one Decider interview. But yeah, with these three in a room, I personally am rooting for Catherine Hunter's Edie. I would watch a whole show about her and Uncle Harlow being the messiest bitches in the galaxy, and Dedra, unfortunately, sort of wins dinner by making Edie be polite while Cyril goes to be a puddle on his fainting couch. Also, shout out to this bit.
Well, we don't have space tea.
There's a shop in the arcade.
No, please.
I'm told an arcade is sort of an architectural term, but I prefer to believe there are stormtroopers playing Pong downstairs. At the end of the arc, we leave Vel sad about her ex-girlfriend, Mon crashing out at her daughter's wedding as her childhood friend is getting murdered, and Cassian, along with Bix and Willman, are running again, forced to lose and leave behind pieces of the home and the family they had managed to build together. So, in terms of some fun behind-the-scenes facts, the Gorman language was invented for the show, and although Gilroy has said it pulls from several European languages, one of the French actors said it was using French phonetics.
We have fun now also between us. Every once in a while, we talk Ghor between each other.
So that's cute. Gorman was where they built some of the most intricate sets. The Gorman Plaza is one large construction on Pinewood Studios with lots of little shops like the cafe we see and also the hotel lobby. They also shot some plates of Italy's Lake Como for establishing shots and presumably added a bunch of sci-fi stuff on top of it. The wildest factoid to me personally is that they, I think, paid a local farmer to plant rye instead of wheat so they could film in this expansive rye field for Mina Rao. And they were able to film some beautiful stuff on that location, but the strikes delayed things, and so the rye had to be harvested before they were able to come back. If I'm remembering right, they basically had a bunch of the rye crop preserved so they could build something on a blue screen stage. As previously mentioned, this season brought back several actors from Rogue One. Apparently, schedules and availability kept them from bringing back even more familiar faces, but there's a council scene in, I think, episode 11 or 12 where I spotted these two and went... All of the cast had special code names for stuff, like on their trailers and so on, and Alan Tudyk was Old Pal, which is so cute I could die. Diego's code name was...
That's sweet that they put a lot of thought. Mine was Carlos. How are they gonna call the Mexican actor? I don't know. I'm sure it's not Carlos, right?
I will say, Ben Mendelsohn in particular is having a grand time being back. Like, oh my god. Between the press where he said he wanted fan videos of Krennic set to Cardi B's WAP.
Or Anaconda. It's got to be one of the two, right?
To his feasting on the scenery in every scene he's in, clearly he's having a ball.
Yeah,
Am I young as well?
You're so young, darling. You're so young. And to see these young
whippersnappers.
young and younger, youngest. I'm the youngest, darling.
Also, I think I mentioned this in the season 1 video, but Diego Luna does his own dubbing for the Spanish dub of the show, and thanks to press on this season, now I know Adria Arjona does too, and it's really cute to hear them talk about it.
I think it's so important. My family most of my family members don't speak English, so for me it's important for them to watch it in their language, right? And they hear my voice. I try to do it for just about every movie, as long as they let me.
Honestly, the press for this one has been fun for me specifically, from Diego getting excited to speak Spanish at every available opportunity.
Wow. ¡Qué increíble! Sí.
Quiero decirte algo.
Okay. God, I'm gonna take this off.
Quiero hablar español contigo.
Perfecto.
To Kyle Solar and Denise Goff being so chaotic during that silly BuzzFeed quiz.
Yellow one? How does that
I would
feel
like to say yellow one.
Why? No, that's not part of the quiz.
That's not fair, Lindsay.
I can't have
We've
to
just
give
been.
my reason.
Oh, these are really difficult, Lindsay.
I can't get over Red 5. I need to talk about it for a second.
Yeah, come on, get it out. Red 5.
You guys have Ewok, what would you name it?
Wicked.
Lindsay, I don't like you. I'd probably call it Paplu, actually. Lindsay, are you happy with that content?
I'm just pretty disappointed.
I had a good time. And because this show was actually promoted this season, there were behind-the-scenes featurettes with every arc. Last season, I was scrolling through people's Instagrams to find a crumb of any B-roll, and now it's just out there.
Surely there's something that desperately requires your attention somewhere else.
Gilroy, in the wake of the show's ending, has been a bit more candid about its inception. I guess the show Bible written by Jared Bush was a bit more of a buddy cop show with K2 and Cassian. I'm guessing that's what Jared Bush of Zootopia fame wrote, since Gilroy has stated that's what the show was once being pitched as.
They tried to make it a, Butch and Sundance, Cassian and the robot go and save the Tesseract or whatever.
And Gilroy wrote to Kathleen Kennedy pitching essentially what Andor would become, not even to be part of the show, but simply from the perspective of what he thought would be a good story. When he came onto the show, he was quite gung-ho.
What kind of
When they said they
did you
wanted
have,
to make
Tony?
this show, I said, okay. He goes to in the first scene, he goes to a brothel, look for his sister, and then kills 2 cops who shake him down. Is that okay?
So everybody on the show has been saying from jump that this has been a hard show to make. Gilroy has talked about not fully grasping how much this project would need at the start.
My blindness and naivete and ignorance about what I was getting into was stunning. Really stunning.
And now he talks about it like going to work at a dairy farm.
It's literally like being on a dairy farm. So it's every day you can't get sick, you can't roll, everything it has to.
Someone's got to milk the
They
script
got to
every
milk
day.
them twice a day.
Diego Luna has also been pretty vocal about how exhausting the show is to do. At one point during the release of Season 1, he was doing press for Episode 6, finishing the Spanish dub for Episode 12, and rehearsing for Season 2 all at once. At one point, this show was going to be 5 seasons.
Diego and I were there in this little hotel. It was on both of our minds because we all of a sudden were like, oh my God, this is so hard to do. It's so much more complicated than we ever thought. We told them we would do 5, and that's how we got financed.
But it was taking so long that they had to do it in 2.
He'll be 60 when we finish. I'll be in a memory-assisted care facility.
At that point, I don't think Disney or Lucasfilm were bereft to have us come back and say, we see an ending to this in 2.
We will come back to this later, but just keep that in mind. The first season was impacted by COVID, although from the sounds of it, the changes from that wait were largely positive. Gilroy has stated in multiple places that rewrites he did due to COVID improved Andor immeasurably.
Absent COVID, there's no show. COVID put the brakes on everything and reset everything and let me learn a way to run the show remotely in a way that really was incredibly effective for the system that we developed to make it. COVID saved the show.
And this season was impacted by the strikes, which forced them to get creative with certain bits in order to achieve a finished product. It didn't seem to affect the writing. They were pretty close to finishing filming when the strikes hit. Mainly it affected things like people's availability. My beautiful beloved Nicholas Bertel ended up being unavailable to score season 2, and I'm absolutely heartbroken over it. Brandon Roberts is a composer whose work I am completely unfamiliar with. The only thing I've seen that was scored by him is the hot mess that was Chaos Walking. He seems to have done a lot of work on horror-related stuff like the show Motherland Fort Salem, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, and the new Twilight Zone. He has worked in the music department on bigger projects like Logan and World War Z, but as a composer of additional music, which is not a very enlightening screen credit, if anybody knows what it means in a practical sense, please post a comment. That aside, much of Season 2's music is either reorchestrations of Nicholas Bertel's themes or new themes that are inoffensive and serve the story fine, but sadly are a touch unmemorable. Like, truly, this music is serviceable, and not even a terrible listen. But unlike Season 1, most of the new themes slide right off my brain, with the exception of the anthem we hear the Gorman people sing. I mean this anthem. Which was written by Bertel prior to his exit from the project. Some of the most memorable new moments are from vocalists Grace Davidson and Anne de Renays, who bring some nice opera moments to this literal space opera. Also, the openings for this season do not work when put together like the Season 1 tracks. Here's a reminder of what Season 1 sounded like. And here's what Season 2 sounds like. At least I wasn't able to cut the openings together in a way that sounded nice. One YouTuber by the name of Joko Studio 2 managed something a bit more sonically pleasant, but even then it still doesn't quite sync up. I'll link his video in the description, but it's just a less cohesive piece than the Season 1 openings were. And if it sounds like I'm being hard on Brandon Roberts, let me be very clear here. Being brought in to replace another composer whose work has already thoroughly impacted a project must be so hard. I'm sure in the rough edits they were mostly using Season 1's score as temp or placeholder music, which is probably how Marva's speech music just becomes the dramatic speech music for Mon Mothma instead of doing something with Mon's theme.
We kept the trade lanes open and they left us alone. We took their money and ignored them. We kept their engines churning, and the moment they pulled away, we forgot them.
When truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest.
Or the final triumphant musical beat as Cassian flies to the rings of Kafrene is a reprise of the Narkina 5 jailbreak music for some reason. Instead of like a big orchestration of maybe the show's theme. Season 1 was pretty effective at using recurring themes to draw connections, but this season it just feels like those themes are brought back when they sound nice. Like, I'm sure a lot of the direction would have been to make it sound like what the last guy did, and that's a tough spot to be in. I don't blame Roberts, I just miss what Bertel brought to the project. Bertel said in season 1 that the score was asking a question, and I'm very sad that we never get to hear him answer it. But the score getting more orchestral to better connect to Rogue One's John Williams evoking score is cute. I did smile when they played a reorchestrated version of the Star Wars theme during the credits of the finale. But I was listening to the themes from season 1 all year after those albums dropped, and I'm sad I won't be doing that as much for season 2. Although I will say, shout out to Roberts for following in Giacchino's footsteps with some goofy track titles like Mina Run, Montage, Our Man in Palmo, and The Bix is Back. With season 1, there was a big limitation on traveling and location shooting due to COVID, so they stuck to filming in studios and on built sets, with Scotland being the farthest they were able to go. By the way, I guess while they were filming in Pinewood Studios during season 1, Little Mermaid was filming across the way.
And out my window is the back lot, and who has the back lot? Little f***ing Mermaid. And Little Mermaid is there like the whole time to haunt me.
Disney movie.
Why is that not my...
Ixnay on the Mermaid.
Yeah, no.
I just think Gilroy ignoring his media training is funny.
I've been unleashed in the last 2 weeks to use the word fascism. I had media training before that.
But with season 2, they were able to travel, and that was something Gilroy really wanted. So for season 2, they filmed some stuff for Coruscant and Chandrila in Spain. Another thing that's been discussed a lot is how much this season cost. Now, I'm not going to surprise anyone when I say I am not a maths genius, but I'm a bit baffled by the discourse. In 2023, according to this MovieWeb article, The Mandalorian cost $15 million per episode and had cost a total of $360 million for 16 episodes. Andor, in the same article, was reported to cost $15 to $25 million per episode. So, we knew it was more expensive to produce in 2023. I don't understand why people are mad. Yeah, obviously this money could be better spent on, helping people dealing with food scarcity or funding environmental protections or helping refugees or something, but it's already Disney money and they only spend on themselves, so at least it's going to artists and not straight into shareholders' pockets. A common complaint I've heard a lot with frankly most modern genre television these days is that the super condensed seasons are making them worse. Some stories can be told in 5 to 10 episodes, but not all of them work that way. Look at Disney Doctor Who. I miss when seasons were 14 episodes instead of 7. Most modern live-action Star Wars shows are 6 to 8 episodes a season. Andor seasons are 12 episodes each, which means more filming and production costs, more paying actors for their time, etc. And the season being 12 episodes means that we get some decent pacing and plotting, unlike Obi-Wan or even the unfairly maligned Acolyte. Some of these articles were comparing the cost of Andor to some of the Star Wars films, which of course are going to cost less because they're only 2 hours, not 12 or 24 hours long. It costs more when you're going to make more show. Now, with a total of 24 episodes in the can, Forbes states via some Disney UK disclosures that the show cost $645 million to make, and that $290 of that was spent on season 2. And Screen Rant claimed season 1 cost around $250 million. Also, a source close to the production said that when production shut down due to the strikes, costs associated with halting production were around $20 million. That same article said episodes cost around $20 million, which is comparable to shows like Severance or House of the Dragon, but it's hard to know how accurate these numbers are, or if this includes the money they spent on marketing, because season 1 was barely a blip on the radar. I went to Disneyland the summer after season 1 of Andor dropped, and there was not a single piece of Andor merch, not a necklace or keychain or action figure or plushie, and no Rogue One stuff either. Trust me, I looked. Then they marketed the shit out of season 2, possibly because season 1 did so well compared to shows like The Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, and season 3 of The Mandalorian, which were derided by critics, audiences, or both. So now the cast is doing cute quizzes on BuzzFeed. Andor ads were on the sides of buses all over Los Angeles. There's merch now, and plenty of it, and you can watch Diego Luna unbox some of it. There was an advertising campaign that was eager to remind you that season 1 of this was the most well-received Star Wars in recent memory. According to Gilroy, Man, the critics helped us. The weirdness of our numbers started to help us. I don't know what our numbers really are, but I've been told they're eccentric, and they go in the opposite direction of what people expected. They rise over time, and they must have had some comfort for Disney that I'm unaware of for them to gamble. Kathy Kennedy gambled, and Iger gambled, but it would have been either or. I don't think there's a skinny version of it that worked. When I made the Season 1 video, it sounded like Andor was cheaper to make than most Star Wars shows at the time. I was under the impression that extensive use of the volume was actually raising costs. But after doing some research, I think there are factors that people aren't considering when it comes to how much Andor costs to produce. Number 1, this show uses lots of big practical sets, lots of extras needing lots of costumes, lots of well-made props. These are departments that are properly unionized to get paid a decent wage in an economy where a living wage is extremely high. In the US, depending on what state you live in, a living wage is between $40,000 to $60,000 a year. And in Britain, it's a little less than £30,000 a year, which when converted to the US dollar for comparison brings us back to around $40,000 a year. So if you're paying a lot of skilled laborers and extras fairly, then the price goes up. Disney has regularly cheaped out, relying heavily on CGI and then underpaying their VFX teams who only just started unionizing in 2023. So the show is hiring a lot of people who expect a decent wage for their work and probably paid them what their work was worth. And that can add up. The other factor for Season 2 specifically is that it's condensing 4 seasons of story into one. Imagine a season revolving around the lead up to the Chandrillin wedding, 2 seasons on Gorman, 3 seasons on Yavin in varying states of being built up, even just more than 1 episode in this intricate future hospital. They built 4 seasons worth of big sets, costumes, and props, most of which aren't reused after their arc is complete. Honestly, the only set that recurred across most of the arcs was the safe house. Gilroy specifically wanted to tell a story with that set. I'm guessing the story is fascists not caring about infrastructure? But yeah, Disney may have gotten some more bang for their buck if Gilroy and co. hadn't had to condense the story down so much. I mean, yes, I do think we need to bring back the mid-budget project in TV and film because everything these days is trying to be a big-budget spectacular, but lately a lot of those projects are also cutting corners, and the end result often suffers because of it. So I'm fine with the costs on Andor. I'm hoping it means all these costumers and set builders and so on got paid. But also, we do need to bring back low-budget sci-fi. It's so weird seeing Doctor Who looking this expensive. It's alarming to me. I don't think Andor is the problem, but I do think the entertainment industry at large will learn the wrong lessons from Andor and assume that any attempt at politically thoughtful entertainment needs to cost millions to be good. So the second arc of the show brings us back to this season's theme of leftist infighting and also introduces us to Bix's trauma arc. My girl is having a bad time with regular nightmares of Dr. Gorst. Now there's new aspects to her nightmares, like a man Cassian killed during the 1-year gap between the Mina Rao arc and the Coruscant arc. Apparently it was because he had seen Bix's face and Cassian thought it wasn't safe to let him live. Fascinatingly, her nightmare of Dr. Gorst has this line,
"Everyone has their own rebellion, right?"
But since this is all a nightmare Bix is having, I'm crediting that line to Bix. It's a good one, we'll come back to it. But Cassian's worried and paranoid. Just leaving the safe house to get groceries makes him twitchy and nervous.
The mission is dinner.
But being cooped up is definitely what's putting Bix on the decline. She starts turning to drugs to help her sleep. In one scene, Luthen checks in on her, notices the drugs, and just says,
"It works for a while, but the dreams come back worse when you stop."
Which speaks to some very personal experiences we will never see. Honestly, one of my favorite moments with Bix in this arc is this exchange.
I'm not as strong as you.
That's just tonight talking.
Or maybe you're not as strong as I think.
But Cassian and Bix being cooped up in this safe house together has made the pair feel very domestic. Cassian is cooking dinners, Bix is talking about decorating and bringing home flowers. There's this one incredibly intimate scene where they do what I can only describe as a hand fasting ritual. I don't know what to call it. It's not quite a dance, it's not quite sexy times, it's clearly something they've done before. Apparently, Luna and Arjona sort of worked out this ritual themselves, and it's such a tender, nonverbal moment between them. It reminded me that Bix says they've known each other forever, and there was quite possibly a time after he first arrived on Ferrix when they had to communicate without a shared language. It's quite possible she helped teach him Galactic Basic when they were very young. Like, I really love Bix and Cassian's dynamic a lot. It's very tender. At one point, Cassian is sent by Luthen to Gorman to sort of get a vibe off the local rebellion, the Gorman Front, that's brewing there. And for this, he becomes Varian Sky, aka Gucci Diego. I'm pretty sure I screamed Gucci Diego the first time he sauntered on screen inhabiting this persona. I love seeing Cassian work undercover. The way he slips in and out of character when he's approached by Enza Rylans, a member of the Gorman Front, is fascinating here. One second he's the eager fashion designer, and the next he's whispering,
"Maybe I'm a snitch, and you're my payday. Maybe I'm ISP. Maybe you just put everyone you care about into a cell."
My father's very proud.
And I can't wait to meet him.
I love the moment when Cassian sort of questions and sort of befriends the bellhop at the hotel where he's staying. Initially, he's digging for information, dragging up some local knowledge about the massacre that happened in the town square on Tarkin's orders some years ago. And then when the bellhop, Tila, gets understandably sensitive, he just kind of wishes him well and they have a nice moment.
Do let me know if there's anything else you might need.
Hey, thank you. It's good to meet you.
But Cassian's impression of the Gorman Front is that they are overeager, inexperienced, and their insider information from an Imperial source can't be trusted. He thinks they are going to get themselves killed, and he tells them so.
Not much of a revolutionary, are you? Perhaps not.
And tells Luthen they should back off rather than stoke the fire. And Luthen tells him he needs to stop thinking like a soldier and think like a leader. And they have the following deeply telling exchange.
If it goes up in flames,
it will burn very brightly.
And just a reminder, this is the same man who would be haunted by the death of 30 men.
Plus Krieger.
Fascinating. Also, when Cassian gets back to Coruscant, he describes the mission to Bix thusly.
I was a fashion designer. I was very, very pretty.
And I screamed, "Yes, you were so pretty!" But he's frustrated that Luthen approached Bix behind his back about a job and never told him about it. Bix is frustrated that Cassian is so overprotective. Luthen wants to send Cassian on another job, but Cassian's still mad and is like, maybe. And Luthen seems really exhausted by everybody and all of their feelings. Meanwhile, our boy Wilman is kind of Luthen's go-to guy right now as Cassian is becoming more difficult, so he's sent to Saw Gerrera to help them mine for this fuel called Rhydonium. I guess this is the justification for Saw's decline in Rogue One. He likes to huff gas fumes, I guess? Either way, Forrest Whitaker really gets to go off in this scene with Wilman, where he talks about being forced into a prison work camp on Onderon and discovering Rhydonium. It sounds haunting. He also has this line about it.
"'Cause she's my sister, Rhydo, and she loves me."
Fascinating, since we know he's got a dead sister, and then he basically breathes in the fumes and encourages Wilman to do the same with the following speech, which I have to recite so YouTube doesn't come for me. I'm not on Forrest Whitaker's level at all. I'm sorry. Remember this moment, this perfect night. You think I'm crazy? Yes, I am. Revolution is not for the sane. Look at us, unloved, hunted, cannon fodder. We'll all be dead before the Republic is back, and yet, here we are. Where are you, boy? You're here! You're not with Luthen, you're here! You're right here, and you're ready to fight! We're the Rhydo, kid! We're the fuel that explodes when there's too much friction in the air. He tells him to let it in, and that this is freedom.
Let it run wild!
On the one hand, I love this line.
Revolution is not for the sane.
On the other hand, I'm not sure I love the explanation of he was like that because of drugs. That's overly simplistic, but when he says one cannot exist sanely under fascism, which as a mentally ill person living in a fascist country, I think that's a mood, I didn't need the addition of drugs? I don't know, I have no real-life experience with addiction. Maybe it's a meaningful commentary on what living under fascism will do to a person. or it could be referencing some historical atrocities I don't even know about. But Saw was already sort of portrayed as like paranoid due to trauma and PTSD, and I didn't need the extra explanation. I just assumed at some point he would get injured and mess up his lungs due to rebel activities. Anyway, Woolman huffs some gas and yells, and it seems ominous and interesting, and then we never mention any of this again. Also, there's a subplot where, once upon a time, Clea planted a listening device on Davos Skulldon. Remember him? Scumbag Indiana Jones whose kid marries Mon's kid? Well, they were surveilling him, but now he's turning his collection of appropriated trinkets upside down because one was labeled as a fake. I love the scene where Luthen and Clea argue about it.
Let's put a bug in Davos Skulldon's office.
It didn't seem to bother you when we caught Yularen lying.
Oh, seriously?
The Hollow News buyout, Skulldon courting the Grand Vizier.
Bits and pieces, that's all we ever got.
Episode 5 actually begins with the sounds of the radio Clea is always working as she takes in all the signals and ferries messages along.
Run off 748.
I love that. So Clea accompanies Luthen to a party at Davos Skulldon's. Also, shout out to that robot paparazzi. That's fascinating. But Mon's there too, with Perrin, as is Krennic, being his slimiest self. So while Mon and Krennic have a pretty heated debate...
My rebel is your terrorist. Something like that.
I'm sweating bullets watching Clea trying to detach this listening device. She enlists Lonnie Young's help, poor guy.
Do as I say and everything will be fine.
Also, I loved Clea last season. Well, I love her a lot this season. I'm pretty sure I yelled "Mommy" at least once during this scene.
And what were you going to do if I wasn't here?
Anything I had to. This is do or die, Lonnie, so move to your left and listen closely because we may be tested.
And she's literally cutting her hand open to try and pry this thing off. Jesus Christ. But it all works out. Luthen and Clea walk out of there joking about how fun it would be to just kill Krennic, and I love them.
That's the spirit.
Meanwhile, the fascists are, well, Cyril is on Gorman living out his fashionista dreams. Remember, this guy had his uniform tailored in season 1.
Pockets piping and some light tailoring.
And I spent a lot of this arc going, wait a second. I don't trust this. Why is Cyril being so chill with the Gormans, even discouraging his mother from buying into anti-Gorman propaganda?
They were always too good for the rest of us.
You are watching too much Imperial news.
Well, it turns out Dedra has placed him there as a mole to get inside the Gorman front and feed them only the information they need to, in Dedra's own words, do the wrong thing. He gets in with the locals and convinces them, or rather lets them convince him, that he has important insider information on what the Empire is up to in the area and to pass along some, files and schedules. Cyril, meanwhile, apparently believes he is there to help find whatever outside agitators are spurring on the Gorman front. I suppose in these scenes with the Gormans, he believes he's helping them by lying to them. I know guys like this must exist, but Cyril baffles me at this point. There's a scene where he talks to General Partagaz with Dedra and says afterwards,
If I say this is the greatest day of my life, does it spoil everything?
And Dedra says,
It's good to see you happy.
At one point, they apparently do the weirdest shit you can imagine with the lights off because this is on Disney+.
Turn out the lights.
Can't believe you had me followed.
Turn out the lights.
It is very funny the way the cast and Gilroy talks about this scene.
Dedra and Cyril. Greatest love story of all time. Beautiful.
Wow, greatest love story of all time.
That says more about me than you.
Turn out the lights.
They call me Mother.
I thought that
basically
Cyril was the only one that called you Mother.
That's what happens in the dark, ladies and gentlemen.
Mama?
But also, God, they continue to be weird and weirdly in love, and crucially, Cyril doesn't know about why he's really there. He doesn't know about the Calcite, and is apparently naive enough to believe that what he's doing will not hurt the Gorman people, as he infiltrates their group and gives them information on when weapons are being delivered to the Imperial armory that's being built in the center of town. And since Cassian has washed his hands of this whole scene, Vel is sent along with Cinta. The pair are beautiful together when they finally have time to catch up. Cinta talks about how, in the last year, she suffered a major injury that had a long recovery time, and during that long and lonely period, she did a lot of thinking about Vel and their relationship, and she says she regrets ending it. They kiss, and I'm pretty sure I screamed, "Love wins!" Also, much like the second arc of Season 1 had the Aldhani heist, Season 2's second arc has a little heist for these weapons. Vel and Cinta are leading the Gorman front, and Vel comes in strict and assured. She tells them to bring no weapons, and she tells them where to be. And because this one guy, Sam, doesn't know her or trust her, in spite of the fact that they are there for the same cause, he still brings a weapon to the heist. And when this other guy, Lazine, shows up unexpectedly, Cinta catches a stray bullet and dies. I will talk about this more later, but I am big sad, and also remember the theme of leftist infighting? Well, these disparate people's inability to trust each other is getting people killed. Again. Last arc, those ridiculous rebels on Yavin got each other killed over petty squabbles, and in the next arc, the Gormans are still squabbling as the hammer is about to drop on all of them. Vel is understandably stricken, and for some reason, I find it sweet that Lazine, the guy who wasn't even supposed to be here, offers to carry Cinta's body so they can get out of there. Something about this guy who doesn't even know her, seeing her pain and trying to help how he can really gets to me. I don't know, I guess I blame Sam, who brought a gun when he was told not to. When they're riding away from the scene, Sam is crying, and Vel is furious, and she has this incredible speech where she tells him Cinta was loved and will be mourned in ways he can't begin to understand, and that this will stick to him like skin. At the very end of this arc, we see Bix break into whatever office Dr. Gorst is currently set up in. By the way, I wrote down that Dr. Gorst died for a Happy Meal. I will not explain further. Anyway, Bix hooks him up to his own torture device, turns it on, and just leaves. Cassian meets up with her outside, and they blow up the building behind them, and I cheered for them. To quote that silly song title, "The Bix is back." So, Anthony Joseph Gilroy, the showrunner and writer on Andor, is a pretty interesting guy by all accounts. His mother was a sculptor and writer, and his father was a playwright and movie producer who, according to Gilroy, took a lot of financial risks in order to make his art. So Tony, in his own words, has been much more risk-averse until very recently. Gilroy actually started out studying music. He was planning to be a studio musician. He got his first writing job in his 30s on an ice skating film called The Cutting Edge, and it was an eye-opening experience.
And I walked in the office and I was like, oh my God, here's this production office, all these people work here. And the line producer was a really old school line producer, and they brought me into him, and he said, welcome. He goes, I'm gonna try to get rid of you as soon as I can. I go, what? He goes, I hate having the writer on the set. That was my introduction. I was like, okay.
But his second script was Dolores Claiborne, a Stephen King adaptation directed by Taylor Hackford, and Hackford was much more chill about writers, and much kinder, according to Gilroy. Consequently, they collaborated 3 times on Dolores Claiborne, Proof of Life, and The Devil's Advocate. And Devil's Advocate is also, I think, where we really start to see Gilroy writing capital S speeches, like what we see in Michael Clayton and eventually Andor.
You build egos the size of cathedrals, grease even the dullest dreams with these dollar-green, gold-plated fantasies until every human becomes an aspiring emperor, becomes his own god.
Also, at one point in Devil's Advocate, an absolutely batshit film, this happens, and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Context won't help you either, just watch. If I were to describe Gilroy's work overall, I would say that Tony Gilroy likes intrigue. He likes experts in a field who can explain the intricacies of said field that nobody else is going to understand, and they tend to sound cool doing it.
Cops like hit and runs. They work them hard, they clear them fast. Right now there's a BCI unit pulling paint chips off a guardrail. Tomorrow they're going to be looking for the owner of a custom-painted, hand-rubbed Jaguar XJ12. There's no angle, there's no champagne room. I'm not a miracle worker, I'm a janitor.
A lot of Tony Gilroy protagonists could be summarized with,
what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
Oh, and he loves somebody saying that something is in play.
Everything is in play.
We're in play.
You need to be ready.
We're in play. That's the good news.
Now we know we're in play.
This has got to stay in play.
Gentlemen, I have the cellar on site and in play.
We're in play, for Christ's sake.
You said it, we're in play.
The rough draft that we prepped with you last week is in play.
He's also fridged some women in his day. For those who are unfamiliar, this means killing off a woman character, usually a wife or girlfriend, to further the arc of a male protagonist. If you care, skip ahead like 10 seconds to avoid spoilers. It happens in The Bourne Supremacy, The Devil's Advocate, and Beirut, and I'm bringing this up now because I have a point to make later. But Gilroy tends to write a lot of compelling action thrillers following white people in countries that James Bond would travel to seem quote-unquote exotic, whether it's the 2000 film Proof of Life, the Bourne trilogy, or the 2018 Beirut. I know the Bourne Legacy would technically fall into that category as well, but I don't think it's compelling. Okay, that was mean. I actually rewatched Legacy for this video, and it's not as bad as I remember, but it does occasionally have some of the silliest lines of dialogue you've ever heard being delivered very seriously.
If he didn't viral out, he's gonna run out of brain.
And let's not forget this old chestnut.
Dr. Shearing, where are the chems? I need the chems!
And for any KJB heads in the audience,
CIA clowns.
Of course, Gilroy is quite open about working for the paycheck, so it's hard to know how passionate he is about these stories. The other half of his filmography, including 2 of the films he's written and directed, are mostly what I would call the corporate espionage dramas, although Duplicity is fascinatingly labeled as a comedy, not that I could tell from watching it. Michael Clayton is obviously the gem in his filmography, and everybody will tell you so. It's a great movie with a tight script and a stellar performance from George Clooney. Even State of Play and Extreme Measures are sort of adjacent to / overlapping with this category, despite one being partly political and the other being partly medical. A lot of his works are adaptations of pre-existing material. Andor and Rogue One are both playing off of all of Star Wars canon. Dolores Claiborne and The Devil's Advocate are based off books of the same name. The Bourne franchise is based off a book series by Robert Ludlum, and State of Play is an okay adaptation of a stellar BBC miniseries that starred John Sim and Kelly MacDonald. Sadly, very little of it survives online, so I can't show you much of the superior material to prove my point. I just remember liking it better. There are total outliers in his filmography, of course, particularly in his early work, like that Ice Skater movie or his adaptation of Stephen King's Dolores Claiborne, where, by the way, Kathy Bates is just constantly saying weird stuff like this.
Jeezly Crow, you got some nerve. But the last time you were sorry was when you needed to use the pay toilet and the string on your pet dime broke.
Corey, you're more nervous than I am.
Got my sociable security. Now you listen to me, Mr. Grand High Poobah of Upper Butt Crack. Little piss squirts.
I'm assuming these quirks are down to King's source material rather than Gilroy, but boy, I needed to share that because I thought it was wild. Also, he was one of 3 writers on that Great Wall movie with Matt Damon, which I don't think fits into any category.
It just sits there like a lemon.
And he was one of 5 writers on Armageddon. But I do think you can find a synthesis of the genres he favors in Andor. What I find interesting about Gilroy as a creator is that he's very Hollywood, for lack of a better term. He talks like the industry veterans I know. He's not going to try and paint himself as some tortured artist. This is a job, and he will tell you so.
Yes, I have fed my family through disrespect of IP.
We're never going to talk about what happened on Rogue.
I have fed my family by not talking about Rogue.
The way he approaches stories and writing sounds almost mechanical. He's not going to get romantic about it.
You have to be like a sniper, so nothing that's a blemish can last for more than a moment. You have to kill anything that's not working right away, and you can't delude yourself ever. And you just have to be sniping all the way on what's right.
You sound like Luthen.
I am Luthen. No.
Hell, he compared making Andor to working on a dairy farm. I appreciate that he decided to take his interest in history and put that into a Star War.
The show is, I mean, in the macro sense, it's a survey of, it's a big opportunity to do a whole, I mean, who's ever going to get a chance to do another 1,500 pages on Revolution again, right?
I appreciate the fact that he wrote a show that respects an audience's intelligence. I have criticisms of the end result, but there's a lot to love here, and also here's some ridiculous stuff he said in interviews that I thought was funny.
It's Keno Lloyd. Any theories for you two? Whatever happened to him? Did he ever get out of
prison? I have a
prison?
Narkina 5 swim team t-shirt that I wear.
I just want you to be in every interview we do from now on.
No, man, oh my God.
Episodes.
You're a story
You're the
terrorist.
Two numbnuts who just gave it away.
Structurally, I was assuming something big would happen in the third arc that was in some conversation with the third arc of last season, the Narkina arc. I would say the parallel mostly ends up being one of scale. When things break in the third arcs, they do break big. So when we catch up to Cassian and co. in 2 BBY, they are now settled on a Yavin 4 that is rapidly becoming the rebellion we recognize. I love the little details of stuff still being built and references to the obvious menial work that goes into simply housing and feeding an insurgency, which is, I'm pretty sure, how we would classify them at this point. Like, the Force healer that approaches Cassian and Bix is working as a cook. She's just doing her healer stuff as a side thing that Cassian doesn't trust and that she admits can often be dodgy. They're just walking through the camp and this woman is drawn to them. She knows immediately that Cassian's right shoulder is the one with a burn that hasn't been healing well, and she puts her hand on that shoulder and does her thing, and then thanks him for his clarity.
All that you've been gathering, the strength of spirit, surely you must feel it.
Cassian is really unnerved by all of this and basically runs off, which I love, because that is something we've seen in Cassian before.
There is more than one sort of prison, Captain. I sense that you carry yours wherever you go.
Cassian is a very practical, pragmatic sort of person, and he doesn't seem particularly comfortable with things he can't conceptualize, like a mystical force powering the universe. He thinks it's a load of crap, and apparently so did Marva. But somehow this woman has seen his purpose, or his destiny, or however you want to view it. I prefer to treat the Force as more of a conceptual, cosmic, metaphorical thing, even though I know in Star Wars it can be very literal. According to Gilroy,
there is some element of destiny that I shouldn't ignore. And reluctant destiny is really cool. I mean, there's a really major religion that's based on it. And Diego's really good at looking like Star Wars Jesus.
But this healer tells Bix that Cassian is a messenger.
Most beings carry the things that shape them, they carry the past. But some, your pilot, they're gathering as they go. There's a purpose to it. There's some place he needs to be.
And that's something that we already know, just from Rogue One and Season 1. We know that he's been passing things along, inspiring others for a while now.
I'd rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they want.
And I would rather die trying to take them down than giving them what they want.
We know that he took what he learned from Narkina 5 and used that to start helping people.
Kill me. Or take me in.
We know that he will help ferry the Death Star plans to the Rebellion along with Jyn. And later in this arc, we learn that this line,
rebellions are built on hope,
something that he told Jyn, that she in turn passed along to others.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Well, it came from that Gorman bellhop, Tila, who will die along with many others in a massacre, and in spite of that, he still has hope. Both Cassian and Jyn are messengers. Jyn is the one who carries Galen's message to the rebellion.
Father's message. We can't risk it. You're the messenger.
And I'm such a ham. I love this parallel being stated outright. I think it's gorgeous. I believe I shrieked and clapped like a happy little seal because, yes, he is the messenger! I'm very normal, you see. But Willman came back from some mission away, and he tells Cassian that Luthen is asking for him to come to Gorman. Of course Cassian is angry because he said this would end badly for the Gormans, but Willman lays the blame with the Empire. Then Willman passes along the mission, which is to assassinate Dedra Meero.
I know you're gonna say it's for revenge, but it's not. She's been coming for Luthen since Ferrix.
At one point, Willman says Cassian is treating Luthen like he's a bad guy, and, well,
that would be easier.
Fascinating.
But as all this has been going on, Imperials have been bringing in soldiers on Gorman. We spend a pointed length of time on this particular troop that we are told is inexperienced. And we see news people out on the plaza saying stuff like this.
Terrorism strikes again in Gorman just 3 weeks after events in Korea and Jelnovi.
Local leaders are urging calm, and so far there's been no statement or claim of credit from any local terrorist groups.
It's clear that the propaganda machine has set these people up to die as villains in the public consciousness. Meanwhile, Cyril has been trying to get in touch with the Gormans, because in a turn of events that did surprise me, but in retrospect makes perfect sense, It's easier to watch strangers get annihilated when one is convinced they are somehow subhuman. Getting to know people as just people does make it harder to justify their genocide, and I guess that's where Syril's at, rocketing between denial of his own culpability and frustration with Dedra, who keeps insisting everything is fine and it will be over soon. Syril's mad about Dedra misleading him on the precise details of who exactly might get killed from all the lying he knew he was doing. There is a pretty difficult scene where he strangles Dedra, demanding information on what exactly is going on after this guy basically spits in his face and calls him a collaborator. Which, to be clear, he is. And what's fascinating is watching Dedra double down. We've seen how she is oppressed by the system she's built her life around, even if it's small compared to what others are experiencing. But her superior is frequently telling her to stop being so emotional all the time.
How exactly?
Dedra, calmly.
They're saying we've landed mining rigs.
You seem animated.
This echoes a long history of undercutting women by labeling them as too emotional or hysterical, while they are also constantly demanding that she keep up the subterfuge with Syril. And so when she is faced with the consequences of her actions, rather than step back and consider, hey, is this a good idea? Or even, is this good for me? She just goes straight to pointing out how they'll both be better off if they go along with this, and he's been enjoying the fruits of their fashy labor for a while now, which is also true. Syril has enjoyed feeling important for the last little while.
I told you I was being watched. They started breaking into the apartment. I know they're tapping the office comms. I assume I'm being followed all the time.
In the end, Syril decides to run back out into the fray rather than stay with her. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, we see this Gorman senator, who earlier was clearly trying not to make waves when he turned down an appeal from Mon Mothma on whatever bill she was pushing. Now he approaches her and thanks her for her courage. It feels like a goodbye because it is. The next time we see him, he's being arrested by Imperials. I wish this show was less relevant. And the Gorman front knows they're screwed, but even as the walls are closing in, they are still fighting with each other about how they have tried to lead their rebellion, about dignity, about violence versus non-violence. This stuff would be a neat thought experiment if it weren't for the very literal realities they are currently facing, and so, when it gets heated, my guy from the last arc, Lizine, tells them to stop fighting. He says in Ghor, look at what they've done to us, and he says, I don't care if you fight or lay rose petals in the street or hide in the basement. I don't care for any of it. We are the Ghor. We are the Ghor. If they take that from us, then what's worth saving? To quote Bix, because again, it was her subconscious that said it, everyone has their own rebellion. But the Ghor are going to protest in the town square. Cassian arrives with Wilman and goes back to that hotel with a new name and character he's inhabiting.
Ronnie Guja.
And after playing up being a visiting news guy here to cover the events that are about to occur, and that he just hasn't had time to get his papers in order, the bellhop says,
You'll have to carry your own bag this time. Another way.
And yeah, the next day Cassian says he hopes things work out for Thila, and the bellhop responds,
Rebellions are built on hope.
But for now, Cassian spends a night warily listening to stormtroopers posted directly on the roof above him. The pieces are in place now, and as Luthen said,
it will burn very brightly.
And so, on the day Cassian preps for an attempted assassination, the Gorman people march to the plaza to make their voices heard in spite of Caro Rylands begging them not to, and Syril goes to work in shock and gets thrown in a room with his coworkers and some very unsettling KX droids. And as the Gorman chant and shout in the plaza with tensions rising, my guy Lizine starts to sing the Gorman anthem, and everyone slowly joins in. Also, I don't remember what very smart Tumblr user pointed this out, but a refrain of it is Valley Highland, probably a deliberate echo of Ferrix's chant of Stone and Sky. But as this is going on, those green, inexperienced Imperial soldiers are marched out to clear a path, and stormtroopers have blocked off the exits. And an Imperial sniper shoots a soldier, causing the others to start firing on the crowd, and then it becomes the massacre the Empire planned for. At some point during all of this setup, Cyril has his confrontation with Dedra and then goes running out into the chaos. And now we need to talk about Cyril Karn for a minute. Because people discussing Andor often talk very sympathetically about Cyril Karn, largely because the series very intelligently shows us a male antagonist who is very human and at times in a very recognizable way. Even Tony Gilroy sees him as a tragic figure. And I don't really. Some people don't understand how or why I mock him constantly. In one interview, Denise Goff talked about her equally despicable yet nuanced character like this.
I'm not the kind of actor who's like, I have to love my character. I'm like, no, I absolutely don't. I think what she does is absolutely heinous through this season. And so I was delighted that she ends up there. Yeah. I love it.
And that's kind of how I feel about Cyril. I see his humanity, but he is despicable. Like, he's always struck me as a very real person I could meet in the world, and that meeting would probably go extremely poorly for me. The fact that he, in the end, is upset that the people he cares about specifically are being harmed when he didn't seem to give a crap about the citizens of Ferrix being blown up and beaten by Imperials, shows me the limits of his humanity. And so I can't look at this puddle of a man and call him my stinky son. I reserve that for Kaz Brekker and Dr. Garathan. I'm sorry to people hoping I would have a hard turn on Cyril, but I kind of guessed from day one that this was not a Zuko situation, or even a Kylo Ren or Darth Vader situation if we're keeping it in the franchise. I did not see a true redemption for him. I simply saw him getting hoisted on his own petard, and in a way that is exactly what happened. But Cyril's humanity leads to people talking about his Season 1 arc as that of a character being radicalized. And I'm sorry, but Simpy Cyril meeting Dommy Mommy Dedra, who doms him into fascism? That's not what happened. At the beginning of the show, Cyril is already an overeager cop working for a private corporation. A cop who is itching to go out and do violent reprisals for two guys he didn't even know because he sees a supposed injustice against his own, when really those two dudes fumbled a completely pointless back alley intimidation and wound up dead. There was nothing to avenge, but Cyril made that his mission, and when he's humiliated out of a job, he only doubles down. To me, although Cyril being pathetic is funny, I always understood his character to be, underneath it all, deeply dangerous. He was always determined to be the center of a certain kind of narrative, trying to lead a military action on Ferrix, white knighting Dedra, and so on. In Season 2, we see how he's rationalized his desk job into being the most important job ever.
There's a future here for those who dare.
So he goes to Gorman on Dedra's orders, knowing he's misleading a Gorman rebellion on behalf of the Empire and relishing the idea that this puts him at the center of something.
They started breaking into the apartment. I assume I'm being followed all the time. If I say this is the greatest day of my life, does it spoil everything?
This requires him to really embed himself amongst these people, and getting to know them makes it much harder for him to fit Gorman into the narrative the ISB is selling. A narrative he is unwittingly perpetuating while accidentally assisting in their genocide. But he didn't bat an eye at what the Empire did on Ferrix. He was able to write those people off. For the many Les Mis comparisons on Gorman, and they are many, Tony Gilroy himself brought up Javert.
Just as could not be more exhausted with this, ferret of an employee. So he was my Javert, I'm like, oh, here's a guy who's gonna be obsessed with my hero all the way through. So he stood up right away.
And I'm Javert. Do not forget my name.
And it's true. Cyril is a guy so devoted to one idea of justice, it blinds him to the complex world he's actually living in. And yet, I may be harder on Cyril than I am on Javert, partly because the system he's participating in and benefiting from is very recognizable to me, but also because Javert does actually prioritize somebody else's well-being above his own wants at least once. When he wants nothing more than to see Valjean in chains, he stands aside to let Valjean save a dying kid, which is more than Cyril's mealy-mouthed promises to Enza Rylance. Also, Javert's songs are bangers, but yeah, if Cyril had tried to actually help anybody at all during the chaos in the Gorman Plaza, I would eat some crow. But he doesn't. He maybe cared enough about this one pretty girl he knew to try and promise something, but he wasn't going to try and get someone out of literal harm's way, a thing he did for Dedra in Season 1, so we know he's capable of it, because Syril's sympathy for Gorman only goes so far as his idea of the Empire's justice is being shattered. So he stands there and does nothing until he sees Cassian, who he has built up as the root of all evil, who he's imagined as his nemesis in this pitched battle of wills, which in no way will stop the violence happening around them, and Syril attacks him.
Who are you?
And then he gets to realize that this guy he's been obsessing over for 4 years doesn't even know his name. A shot I called 2 years ago, by the way, leading him to having a season-long fixation on this dude who he met for 5 seconds, who absolutely 100% does not remember him. It's very funny when you think about it, actually. I love being right. And then he died, and I clapped and said good riddance. And some of you may recall an interesting parallel here, because Orson Krennic asked Jyn Erso the same thing at the end of Rogue One.
Who are you?
And because Jyn isn't the human embodiment of a damp rag, she basically tells him, I'm the girl who's going to kick your ass instead of suffering total ego death and getting shot in the head. I know he is in many ways a product of his upbringing, and he was raised by a toxic, abusive mother. But many people are raised by abusive parents and don't become fascists. I honestly don't like the read that I think may be intended that it's because of his mother that he turned out this way, when the fact is, his entire life led him to this. The society that raised him and his mother was broken from the get-go. Syril never had the kind of people in his life who could sway him off this path, but he made all the decisions to end up where he did, and I can't find much more than pity for someone like that. The way I see it, if Cassian was destined to become a rebel, Syril was always preordained to become the fascist that fails to stop him. But after Syril is unceremoniously killed by Caro Rylance, Cassian is trying to get out with Wilman, and the KX droids are unleashed to just demolish whoever is still standing. Enza Rylance is killed, along with many others we've come to know, and Wilman says he has to stay behind. There's a girl, Drina, he needs to go back for. And they're nearly cornered by a KX droid until, of all people, it's Sam, the kid who got Cinta killed that runs him over, ensuring their survival and escape. So Cassian says goodbye to Wilman, and we hope it's not forever, and he asks for help packaging the remains of the KX droid to take back to the rebellion. As he's leaving, he hears Drina on the radio sending out a message, hoping that anybody is listening. Honestly, this might be the most impactful speech of the season, and we don't even see her face for most of it. I am not on this actress's level, but it goes as follows.
Palmo 1. This is Palmo 1. This is the voice of Gorman. This is Palmo 1 making an emergency broadcast on all open channels. This is Palmo 1. This is Palmo 1. We are under siege. We're being slaughtered. The imperial murder of Gorman has begun. There are hundreds of bodies this moment. As I say these words, hundreds of murdered Gormans lay dead in Palmo Plaza. Thousands more on the streets, more every minute. We're being destroyed. This is Gorman reaching for any open channel that can hear me. If you can hear me, if you believe in truth, if you have any faith left in truth, please, please mark this message and pass it forward. This is murder. The Empire built this fire. They made this fire and led us to the slaughter. Now they expect us to die without knowing why. The conspiracy we feared is real. It's here today.
It's a speech that reminds one of messages you hear from those who are being genocided. Read your history books, this is what it sounds like. At this point, you can just go on social media and find messages like this. If there are messages from people being kidnapped by government employees off the streets in the United States without warning, or being disappeared from immigrant detention centers, I'm sure they would say something similar. It's heartbreaking. I hope one day this will feel less relevant. But the final moment of the episode is Edie, sitting on the couch, watching the news. She's just another cog in the Imperial machine, and someone who is easily bought into the Imperial propaganda about Gorman at that. But she watches the news of the massacre, holding her friend's hands and crying, fearing her son is dead but not yet knowing that he truly is. In Episode 9's opening theme, we hear the Gorman's distant chants, like ghosts haunting us. And then we see that Gorman's senators arrest, and Mon wants to get on the Senate floor and say something, which will be difficult since they won't let her speak and her office is being bugged. But Bail and a few others are going to pull some strings to get her that spotlight, and then Mon will have to run. Cassian meets Clea at Luthen's shop and says he's done. He says he can't do this anymore. Who could blame him, really? He's agreeing to do this last job, but then he wants out. And Clea's response is fascinating.
You were a witness to the Gorman massacre. One would think there'd be no stopping you.
Oh, we'll come back to that very soon, Clea, my dear. But the walls are closing in on Mon as she learns her assistant has been working for Luthen all this time, ostensibly to protect her, but, I mean, she doesn't take it well. She reminds us and Luthen, hey, remember that time you had my childhood friend murdered? Like, what is the point of you? And Luthen is like, please pardon my mess, just work with us for the next few days. I'm sending a guy who will get you out and don't trust anybody else.
You'll ask if he's alone. He will say, I have friends everywhere.
Bail Organa said he had people who were going to get her out, but we learn very quickly one of them is a double agent who is definitely there to kill Mon Mothma. So, through some rules lawyering, this representative and then Bail play the senatorial equivalent of catch until we eventually get Mon up there, ready to say her piece. By the way, in the lead up to this, some presumably conservative senator is talking about recent events and has this line,
"The tragic broth we sipped this morning."
I'm obsessed with tragic broth. But yeah, this is the big speech people talk about this season, and maybe it's just because I feel like she says things I've been hearing since 2016 about truth and stuff. It's beautifully delivered. I love how Genevieve O'Reilly talks about performing this on green screen and not feeling alone because she was speaking to the crew with this speech. I think that's really sweet.
I was nervous because I did have to stand up and give the speech. But I was giving it to our crew. It was so important and special to share it with them.
But while I don't find the speech as powerful as most folks seem to, everything happening around it has me riveted. Cassian is on his way to get her out of there, looking over his shoulder the whole time. There's these two unnamed workers who went out of their way to make it harder to stop the broadcast of Mon's speech. These 3 people sent by Bail, one of whom might get her killed very soon. The faces of the people listening to the speech outside the Senate. And even the music. That reorchestration of the theme that played during Marva's speech does make it hit more, since I love that track. And Marva's speech was also about when we let things happen. When we let freedom go because it seems easier. Maybe I'm comparing the 2 scenes because of the music, I don't know. This speech is well written. I like the line about falling prey to whatever monster screams the loudest. Although maybe it doesn't hit the same because I can't stop thinking about tragic broth. Man, what do you think tragic broth tastes like? Anyways, she says her piece and Cassian is waiting outside. Initially, she tries to move past him, but he impresses on her the danger she's in right now, and that she doesn't need to like Luthen, just let him do his job. Also,
I have friends everywhere.
So they get out of there. It's tense and awesome to see them together, finally interacting after all this buildup. We know that they knew each other in Rogue One.
This is Captain Cassian Andor, Rebel Intelligence.
But it's nice to see it play out.
I'm not sure I can do this.
Welcome to the rebellion.
Nice. There's a moment where Mon's driver, who we've known for a while as Shifty, tries to approach them. And I love Cassian being like, what's the deal? Oh, that? Okay.
And who are you?
At this point, Cassian is comfortable killing when he knows these people probably suck. He's killed for less if it kept Bix safe in his mind. I guess people have memed on Mon's reaction, but this is probably the first time she's seen somebody killed. Like, we've known for a while now how sheltered she is.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
How nice for you.
As they get out of there, we hear a reprise of the Past Present Suite from Season 1, a song that signaled a change coming. There's this one shot of Bail sitting in the Senate chambers watching all the lights on the other platforms go out one by one, and it's just a sad, contemplative moment. It feels like the world is ending. We know his will soon. Then we get this great cutaway to a sea of new rebellion recruits being greeted by Vel, and she recognizes one of their weapons. It's definitely the one Cassian took from the Aldhani heist and gave away after Narkina 5. And as we put that together, we see Melshi has arrived! Our boy is here! And thank goodness, because very soon Cassian is going to need a friend. So Mon and Cassian make it back to the Coruscant safe house. At some point, Wilman and Drina got out of Ghor and made it there. Wilman is hurt, but they're alive. Cassian tells them that they're almost home, which is so freaking sweet. Mon is still clearly shaken by everything, and Clea and her assistant are there basically explaining, in canon, the ghost crew from Rebels brought her in, so we're sending her in with some other people to make some good PR. What's funny is I'm fairly sure we got to hear a Mon speech in that episode, and, well...
We cannot allow this evil to stand.
Wow, did she really say that about the Emperor?
It wasn't as good, but Mon tells Cassian she doesn't know how to thank him, and he tells her,
Make it worth it.
And when they arrive on Yavin 4, Draven is basically there to be like, hey, you're a loose cannon kid, but good job. He's actually kind of nice here, as he explains Mon's gonna make another speech when she gets to Yavin with Gold Squadron. He says Cassian can listen in Draven's office if he wants, and Cassian just says,
I've heard her before.
Which I really love for some reason. Also, as like a throwaway thing, Cassian tells Draven there's a busted KX droid in the back if that's like useful for anything. But, you know, earlier in the arc we saw Bix have a talk with Vel about Cassian. It's basically amounted to Vel saying Cassian is important to the rebellion. The most interesting part of the scene is that in the time we didn't see, Vel and Cassian buried their grievances about Aldhani, which makes perfect sense. Would have loved to see that though. But now, Cassian comes home to Bix and like, the guy needs a hug. He's clearly shaken by everything he's seen over the last few days, and he tells Bix that he's done and he wants to leave, to just be with her and stop fighting. And Bix is clearly feeling some feelings about that. And he tells her,
Nothing's worth more than this.
So the next day he wakes up, and she's gone. He wanted her more than a rebellion, and she couldn't abide that, so she left him a message.
I can't be the reason you leave here. If you ever give this up for me, I'd never forgive myself.
She says we have to win. We have to beat them. And she says...
So I'm choosing for the both of us. I'm choosing the rebellion.
So Cassian races through Yavin, hoping to catch her before she goes, but she's already gone. Both Diego Luna and Adria Arjona give heartbreaking performances here. And in this moment, some guy finds him and is like, hey, you know that KX droid? We're about to boot it up. So he goes to watch them boot up the droid, he aims a blaster at it, having seen the destruction these things could do, and it turns on, and we hear...
If I've offended you, I apologize. If not, I'd appreciate you pointing that elsewhere.
And I screamed about my boy! Something funny about this is that there was a comic that was released in like 2017-ish that had a version of Cassian and K2's meeting. I had been curious if that story would stick, but apparently Gilroy is just irritated about its existence.
I was annoyed to find out that somebody had, in the interim between Rogue and that, had written an origin story for K2, and it's like, no, I'm not paying attention to that.
I've read the sacred texts. I know.
But this is the rare one where I don't mind the time we don't see between arcs, because it's so easy to imagine how Cassian, bereft and alone, kind of imprints on K2. This is a thing we know he does. He definitely does it with Jin, and probably Nemik. He imprints on people, like a baby duckling. He goes, I've known you for 5 minutes and I would die for you. And K2 very obviously deigns Cassian as his human, or one of his humans. I would guess he tolerates Melshi. But yeah, my man lost his wife.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. I'll be back.
And he gains a work husband. Or a friend. I will adore every scene we get out of the pair of them moving forward. I'm happy our old friend is finally here. I missed him. On the one hand, I really like that this show respects its audience enough to ask us to fill in the blanks and the gaps between each arc. Unfortunately, there are many story beats that I think lose some of their impact through us not getting to see them. The original plan for the show was 5 seasons, but they couldn't do 5 seasons.
No way in hell we're ever going to be able to make 5 seasons of this show. He'll be 60, I'll be in an assisted living home by then. It's ridiculous.
I wish it had been 5 seasons. It couldn't be 5 seasons. It would have been better if it was 5 seasons. It reminded me viscerally of Season 2 of the Netflix series Arcane. That was another show that had a very strong first season, and then a second season that felt far too compressed. In the case of Arcane, it would have been better if there had been a third season so they could spend a season on the political unrest storyline, and a season on the Avengers Endgame Let's Team Up to Stop an Apocalypse storyline. But what's funny is that Andor in many ways is the inverse of Arcane, where with Arcane, the character stuff mostly works, but the overall plot falls apart under the strain. By comparison, I think the overall plot arcs work in Andor, but it's the characters who suffer due to the compression of the story. Because so much happens off-screen, Bix doesn't have a lot going on other than her trauma or her relationship to Cassian in Season 2. We know Bix has a full life and interests, and we even get to see flashes of that on Mina Rao.
Hello, Bila.
On Coruscant, the emptiness is kind of text. They're trapped in a little box while they're hiding, and her life is made smaller for it. But then, in the Gorman arc, we see Bix on Yavin 4, and she's not doing anything, except for waiting for Cassian to come home, and then she's just gone. We don't see much of her life, or what she does on Yavin when he's not around. We only see her outside of their home once when she takes him to see that Force healer. I would have loved to see more of her just living among these people and what that looked like. There's like 2 separate scenes in that arc that are just her talking to other people about Cassian. And listen, I love her relationship with him. I think it's very layered. But the overall effect for her this season is that her entire character has been condensed down to trauma and Cassian. Not much else can make the cut when we have so much story to get through in 12 episodes. To be clear, I think Adria Arjona is absolutely selling the material she is given, and based on interviews, she likes the material she was given, and I'm happy for her. But I found myself thinking a lot about that original 5-season plan with Bix, and what could have been, because I love her so much and I wanted more for her. The other part of the show where I really feel that strain is with Cinta. We see her very briefly in the first arc, then when she returns in the second, we hear about this entire journey she had off-screen with a debilitating injury that took a long time to recover from. But we don't have time to see it. Like, this is probably the first real kiss between 2 people of the same gender on Star Wars? Sorry, background lesbians from Rise of Skywalker, nobody counts you. And for that to happen literally in the same episode as her death, it's not burying your gaze. Because of the sheer amount of story being squeezed into 12 episodes, the compression of their rekindled relationship happens so closely with her death in a way that feels unintentionally like some gays are being buried. I'm not going to tell anyone not to be upset about it, although I understand how we got there. Frankly, from blurbs I've read from Tony Gilroy about this, I think it was more about Vel's arc than Cinta's. In one Entertainment Weekly article, he said, "I just love Faye Marseille. She's just the most simple, straightforward, no bullshit actor. I did it as much for her as I did for anything else. I wanted to add some luggage for her, and that seemed the way to do it." So it sounds more like Cinta was fridged for Vel's arc, just like they do with straight couples on TV all the time. And as previously mentioned, Gilroy does have a history of fridging women in his films. His writing is goal-oriented. He wanted Vel to have baggage, and Cinta was sacrificed for that. And I don't know, I think being sad about an ex could be baggage enough, but maybe somebody thought it was forward-thinking to use the death of a woman to propel another woman's story. I was more forgiving on this point initially because I thought I was watching a show where most characters were going to die, so the gays being buried seemed unavoidable, but in the end Vel makes it and Cinta doesn't, and listen, it does sort of incidentally lead me to a ship I'm feral about, but I really dislike the journey that got us there. In my mind, Cinta has simply been reincarnated into Belinda Chandra on Doctor Who. I think some characters make it through this compression okay. Luthen and Clea are probably the MVPs of the season. But something funny for just me is that both of my parents, who definitely watch the show separately and don't talk to each other about it, asked me around the show's airing why Mon Mothma was so important. I mean, this character had one scene in Return of the Jedi.
Many Bothans die to bring us this information.
But the collective canon has made her such an important character, from Lucas bringing her back in Revenge of the Sith very briefly, to the cartoons beefing up her storyline. By the time she was in Rogue One, it seemed like a given. Making her such a big part of Andor seemed obvious, since she's the only person in the story who we knew would survive. I mean, technically so does Draven, but he doesn't have the weight of history that she does. I think that is the reason we spend so much time building her up, learning about her tragedies and so on. Also, after season 1, Gilroy learned how good Genevieve O'Reilly can be and started writing for her. But what's funny is, for as much time as we furnish on this character, there are still things that slip through the cracks in her periphery. So her husband Perrin has never been great. I said a lot of crap about him in season 1, but I was getting vibes off him this season where I was like, what's going on with you, dude? At the end of the wedding, you see him noticing that his wife is crashing out. And then from there, they seem shockingly functional every time we see them together. Apparently there was a scene they were going to film with Perrin where he basically told Mon Mothma that he absolutely had been questioned by the Empire and knew what Mon was up to and didn't give her up. And that would have been really interesting. But instead, we just sort of check in with Perrin during the final montage. He's day drinking with Davos Skulden's wife, I guess, and I'm not really sure what we're meant to take from that, given how little of him there is in the final product. We never see Lita again after she determinedly becomes a trad wife, despite the fact that seeing her ongoing struggles under the weight of childish decisions she made without fully comprehending what would follow could be interesting. Would she double down? Would she have regrets? Does she ever miss her parents? But in the end, I never quite felt the conflict or tragedy of Mon being forced to leave her family behind for the rebellion. Just the panic of trying not to get shot. Because at that point in the show, her family is already basically absent. Even Cassian, to a degree, suffers from the compression of the narrative.
I make my own decisions.
This is a line he says to Luthen in the Gorman arc, and based on this season, I mean, I guess he does, but it feels like they're trying to lay the groundwork for Cassian going capital R rogue pretty soon.
The day I need permission to come and go, I'm gone.
That day is near.
And yet it feels more like a plot point communicated through dialogue alone rather than a fully realized idea. Because again, this season doesn't have the time to show us the difficult choices he's making under orders from Luthen or Draven or whoever. Most of the shadier things he does are largely by his own choices, like killing Skeen in season 1. I mean, we hear about him killing that random guy who saw Bix in order to maintain their cover, I think, but we don't see it, which does lessen its impact. With the maxim of show don't tell, I will give them credit, they don't do a lot of telling, more like implying, but they're not showing either. Maybe I'm simple, but I do think there is more impact to the events that we actually see. In Rogue One, when Cassian says,
I've all done terrible things on behalf of the rebellion. Everything I did for the rebellion.
I, and I think many others, imagine Cassian on deep cover missions, lying to good people, killing innocent people, like he does with Tivik at the start of the film. That face journey, I imagine, came from a life that had not yet hardened him to those choices, but was asking him to do such things often. And in season 2, Cassian is just a pretty stand-up guy who spends most of his time saving people.
He should stop saving people.
He is a little mean to this lady on Gorman.
I am who you want me to be. But that's just you getting lucky.
But he's also correct and making very understandable decisions. Honestly, we see more of the dark, difficult decisions being made by Luthen and Clea, making me wonder again about
everything I did for the rebellion.
Because what terrible things did he do for the rebellion? I don't know, maybe I'm viewing this too simplistically. Maybe I spent too long writing fanfic, or maybe a 5-season show could have better landed this idea of Cassian wanting to make his own choices for a change because he's usually being ordered to do some pretty horrible things for the good guys. The fact is, Season 1 of Andor wrote a check that was hard to cash with a Season 2 that would be far more compressed than the excellent and fairly linear story we got in Season 1. I knew going into Season 2 that there was a possibility that the season could feel rushed based on the structure. It didn't quite feel rushed in the way I expected it to, but rushing sure was felt from time to time. I wish it could have been 5 seasons, but it couldn't be 5 seasons, and so here we are. The show is still miles better than probably any other modern Star Wars thing, and maybe the best Star Wars has ever been, but the first season is the stronger of the two, and I'm bummed about it. So now I'm going to talk about the farewell arc, which means I get to talk about the best episode of this season, episode 10, entitled Make It Stop. And it starts by telling us, in the year we've missed, Luthen and Clea have stayed undercover on Coruscant, continuing to pass along information to a rebellion that may not actually want them around, at least according to Luthen in the last arc.
There's still some bridges you haven't burned. We'll take care of that today.
So Luthen and Clea have gotten a signal from Lonnie Young that he wants to meet, and Clea wants to be careful. She says if it doesn't look perfect, don't engage, and Luthen says,
I think we used up all the perfect.
And then he tells her to move, and Elizabeth Dulau's face? I'm going to talk about her acting a lot, but goddamn, Dulau is killing it with these nuanced and complicated face journeys. So Luthen meets Lonnie, and Lonnie basically hacked into a bunch of databases using Dedra Meero's certification, and he burned all of his bridges. He'll be killed if he goes back now. He needs an exit for him and his family, and Luthen tells him they can go to Yavin, but he needs to know what information Lonnie has, so Lonnie tells him he's learned about an Imperial project, one they had long suspected but never been able to confirm. It ties together Krennic, the Imperial Energy Program, the Kalkite, the Gorman Massacre, the Kyber mining on Jedha, and a dozen other atrocities. He says it's a weapon, and Krennic has been working on this for a decade. And Luthen promises they'll keep Lonnie safe, and he asks, what kind of weapon? And we cut away to Luthen leaving this plaza, and there's the distant shot of Lonnie, still and drifting to the side on that bench. We already know, as some animal, I think that's a Tuca cat, sniffs at Lonnie's corpse, and we see the gunshot wound in his chest. He's just another victim now, used for a good cause, to save lives, but used nonetheless.
I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them.
And we see Luthen give Clea the rundown. A weapon, the energy program, Krennic, Kyber, Jedha, Gorman. It's based in Scarif, and an Imperial scientist named Galen Erso is involved. And Luthen tells her to go and take this information to the rebellion, and that he's going to stay to clean up any trackable traces they leave behind. Clea wants to do that part for them, but he insists.
Please don't argue. Just be waiting for me. Just be there. Go.
And so she goes. And Luthen goes back to the shop to melt down the radio. He uses this, liquid metal, and it's a gorgeous shot, but he's interrupted from doing a thorough burn because Dedra shows up. Dedra, who has a dead boyfriend and nothing but ambition left. She's probably been hunting for the player named Axis even more obsessively over the last year, and she knows she's got Luthen dead to rights, but they play the game for a few minutes until she pulls out her ace. The burned-out Imperial Starpath unit, the one Cassian stole in the first season, the one he needed to trade in a hurry, and Luthen came to buy it, but really he came for Cassian. They both know exactly what it is and what it means, but even when Luthen drops the act, he's still distracting her as the radio melts in the back room and as he delivers this incredible line.
The rebellion isn't here anymore. It's flown away. It's everywhere now. There's a whole galaxy out there waiting to disgust you.
And so, as she tries to arrest him, he stabs himself in the stomach. Something that a self-serving person like Dedra never once considered when she came in all fiery and, more importantly, came alone, without backup. Luthen is sent to a hospital, and Clea sees him being gurneyed out of there. She knows that if a hospital can revive him, they could extract all sorts of information. So Clea prepares to go Bourne mode.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
My friend came up with that joke, but it's true. The Imperials are all freaking out about Dedra's actions, but this guy is like, hey, Lonnie Young is dead, and now they're starting to realize there may be a lot that they missed in all of their arrogance. We see Clea in that safe house, and it's looking rough. Just damp and broken down, and she remembers the first time she met Luthen. Now, some details of this are extremely vague, but Wikipedia says he's wearing an Imperial uniform, and we don't know what planet we're on, but timeline-wise, it's probably not long after Order 66 because we're not seeing troopers, and we hear the sounds of a massacre. This man sits in a ship, clearly in shock and drinking as he whispers to himself, "Make it stop," over and over again. He says something else, which might just be "make it stop" in another language, but he's getting more and more agitated and pretends everything is fine when his cohort checks on him. Eventually, the man notices he's being watched. A little girl is hiding on board the ship. She looks a mess, and probably just escaped the mass murder we can hear outside. The man gestures for her to be quiet and hides her presence from the others.
I'll be right behind you.
And then he comes back to her hiding place and holds out his hand for her to take. Also, shout out to the young actress playing Little Clea. Her name is April V. Woods, and she is doing a stellar job. When we see another flashback, the girl is a little cleaner, but clearly hungry and on some backwater planet as Luthen tries to sell this old statue for half of what it's probably worth. Clea is the one who successfully gets the dealer to give them 18 for it instead of 7. The dealer asks if she is Luthen's daughter, and Luthen says yes. Afterwards, she asks,
"Am I your daughter now?"
What is useful?
She says she'll have to think about that, and Luthen says they'll be whoever they have to be, but that she could call him Luthen and he'll call her Clea. Whatever they were before doesn't matter now, and then Luthen worries he upset her, and Clea says she's not upset, just hungry. And he holds up the 18 credits they got and says,
"Let's eat."
And look at her little smile. She refused to smile for that dealer before, but Luthen gets a real smile out of her. The next time we see them, they're clearly in somewhere more established, a proper town with buildings, not just tents. Clea is a little cleaner, her hair a bit more brushed. They're selling another rare item to another dealer, one who seems to understand the worth of it. But as they're discussing that, some people are being marched through town in chains at gunpoint by soldiers. The dealer tells them a trooper was shot by a sniper the other night, and that they keep finding people who did it. The phrasing tells us they are just grabbing people they've decided look guilty. Clea asks where they're being taken, and the adults share a look that says they probably know and aren't saying. But Clea watches them go by. One of them is a kid, maybe a little older than she is, but not by much. Luthen quickly finishes the sale and tells her that they're leaving.
"I'm not."
There's nothing here for us.
She just ignores him and follows the procession, and so Luthen eventually tells her she's on her own and walks away. She watches them get lined up against the wall, even the kid, and they're all shot and killed. She catches up to Luthen and demands to know when they start fighting back. And hey, remember this line?
"You were a witness to the Gorman massacre. One would think there'd be no stopping you."
He says fighting means losing until they're ready, and he tells her, all you know now is how much you hate. You bank that, you hide that, you keep it alive until you know what to do with it.
And when I tell you to move, you move.
Which explains this moment.
Move.
But in the present, Clea gathers materials in the safe house and prepares herself. She enters the hospital in a disguise, pretending to have an injured hand. Then she breaks into a locker and steals the nurse's uniform. Also, shout out to this old lady alien she starts wheeling around.
What?
I love her. And then she blows up a few shuttles outside to cause a distraction, and we have one final flashback. Clea is fully clean and coiffed now, basically a little version of the look we will see her rock for most of the series. According to Wikipedia, they're on Naboo now. They're watching an Imperial procession, or checkpoint, or something on a bridge outside, and Luthen is telling her to slow down, to take in the scenery and enjoy the meal. And Clea just wants to do the thing. She thinks he's backing out, and he tells her to pay attention, that they can never look away like other people can. And he tells her that he needs her to make the choice, that he never had a choice, and that she needs to understand what he is doing to her. She says he's just sad and scared, but Luthen understands he's creating a child soldier and is trying to give her a choice. She says she knows what she wants, and so he hands her the detonator.
You think I won't?
You have every right.
I love this bit when she says that he promised, and he just says,
I lie. Get used to it.
And when she reaches for the detonator, he stops her. For him, making the choice was enough, but he'll have the blood on his hands to at least protect her from it a little. He detonates a bomb and blows up the gaggle of Imperials, but more importantly, walks her through reacting to it in a way that people won't notice. To look at him until the time is right to look at the carnage.
We'll be leaving now. We made our choice.
In the present, she blows up some shuttles and shoots her way into the clinic, where Luthen is clearly on life support. So she closes the blinds, disconnects him from the machines keeping him alive, kisses him on the forehead, and cries. And then she gets the hell out of there. And we end on Luthen's body and a slow fade to black. best episode of the season. Holy crap, I cried buckets over it. Having recently experienced seeing my grandmother in hospice, this hits hard. Also, the fact that the best episode of the season doesn't even have Cassian in it is wild to me, but here we are. And even more incredible is what Elizabeth Dulau had to say in the behind the scenes about Luthen and Clea's relationship. Because he wasn't her father. That would be too easy when he participated in the mass murder of everyone she ever knew. Here is what Dulau had to say about it.
It is not a father-daughter relationship. Because for it to become that, it would mean that Clea forgives him for having done that to her family. There are parts of Clea that really hate this man. That day is not going anywhere. It will always be between them. But love does grow around it. It's a very conflicting place for Clea to exist in.
She said that what helped Clea do what she does in this episode was all the hate she had for Luthen. And all the love, too. Honestly, that context hurts my feelings even more. And now we know, after all the talk of Luthen guiding this revolution, Clea was the engine behind it the whole time.
I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do.
I think Luthen decided he was already ruined by what he did for the Empire, and so he tried to take on as much of the bad as he could in order to protect her from the damage he helped create. Clea was the real rebel all along, but Stellan said rebellions are built on empathy.
If he doesn't have empathy, then he has got nothing to do in the revolution, because the reason for revolution is empathy.
And Diego Luna said they're built on love.
Because yes, the revolution comes with laws, with injustice, with the tons of danger, fear, sadness, but at the end, revolutions happen because love exists.
So Luthen's reasons, which may seem slightly less lofty than we originally thought, don't matter as much as the result, in the end. But in the next episode, Clea is back at the safe house and desperately trying to reach the rebellion. She's disheveled in a way we've never seen her, looking pale and exhausted. If she runs now, she will probably be caught. She was seen on the cameras and they'll be coming for her soon, so she just needs to pass on the message. A weapon, Jedha, Gorman, Kyber, Krennic, Erso. Eventually, Willman picks up the coded frequency on an unsanctioned radio and brings it to Cassian, who was just busy broing out with his boys. Melshi, him, and K2SO are very cute in the scene.
Be careful, he's trying to droid you.
Droid him? Play! Melshi has never risked this much with so little on the board.
But Willman comes and they decode the message, and it's enough to get Cassian moving. Melshi insists on coming, and Cassian tells Willman to get him on the test roster since they don't like him doing unsanctioned missions. Dravin tries to stop them going, but...
I've been counting the orders we've disobeyed so far. Would you like to know how many?
No.
17. This is not... 18.
He does confront Willman about it, though, and Willman says none of this would be here without Luthen. Cassian will echo this later, which, that is true to a point, but I do think it's a bit simplistic when we know this rebellion is so multifaceted. There's a whole other show taking place in this same time frame, and we never see those folks. I do think the rebellion continuing past A New Hope is a huge thing we can credit to Luthen and Clea, but this point gets harped on several times, and a movement like this is never down to just one person, even a very interesting and well-written one. Meanwhile, Dedra is in so much trouble.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into.
She shouldn't have gone in to confront Luthen alone, and now somebody has managed to kill him, so their only lead is gone, and hey, did you know Lonnie Young had your certification? Dedra's been digging into things she shouldn't, putting pieces together in order to just try and track down Axis, but it means she's learned things they didn't want her to know, and Lonnie learned all those things before he died, and it doesn't really matter if they were in on it together or not, she's going down for this. Krennic sweeps in to menace her, and oh my god, he does this thing where he just presses one finger down in the center of her head.
Supervisor Young spent 3 hours last night logged into your account.
And then he did this weird thing with his finger on the top of my head. I thought, brilliant.
Again, my man is feasting on the scenery, but she's screwed. I love when he calls her a scavenger, and she's like, yeah, when you keep killing sources, I scavenge. It makes perfect sense, and she's not even wrong, but she's screwed nonetheless.
We'll do our best to carry on without you.
When her former underling comes to beg her for advice on how to track Clea, Dedra points him to the radio. And the Imperials do eventually track her down. They monitor the remains of the radio in the gallery, and they see the transmission going out, and they can track it. Krennic is demanding they put out notices for her everywhere, do whatever they need to make a cover story, and to do it now. And he tells Partagaz he can't cover for him. Partagaz says he should have been done with his project by now, and Krennic is just kind of like, sucks to suck, sorry. But they do share a moment before he leaves, which is interesting, nodding to a whole history we will never know. So Cassian and Melshi head to the safe house, and K2 waits with the ship. When he arrives, my girl is a mess and clearly hasn't slept in days.
It would be you, wouldn't it?
She tells him Luthen is dead, and when he asks if she's sure, Elizabeth Dulau's face? But the Imperials are literally right outside the building and heading for them. They've cut off communication, so Kay couldn't warn them. And as Clea lays it all out, Cassian says she needs to come with them.
I know what they think of Luthen. That's to be my sanctuary.
He tells her that she needs to pass this along, and she's like,
will you tell them?
And Cassian says he won't leave her behind. He keeps trying to convince her as the soldiers close in. He says it's good that he left, and Luthen should have too, but he was too proud.
Thank the galaxy, he didn't.
And she's screaming at him, but she's also begging him.
You owe him that.
But outside, my boy is a-comin'.
Are you with us? No.
I love my boy! Clea says Yavin is a bitter ending after all this, and Cassian says nothing's ending. Except their asses if they don't move! I added that last part, but oh boy, I was sweating when I watched this. In the end, Clea doesn't give in so much as she just goes along. But of course, the soldiers are right outside the door, and they're cornered, and there's no way out, but my boy is on his way! The trio get hit by a stun grenade, and even in the chaos, Cassian is still trying to protect Clea. Meanwhile, one of the funniest scenes in the series happens in the hallway, as this guy is approached by one of their own killing machines and is killed by it, and then K2 uses him as a human meat shield as he makes his way down the hall to get the others.
Cassian, I've cleared a path.
Iconic behavior, truly. I clapped like a happy little seal. So they get out of there. Melshi carries an unconscious Clea with Cassian and K2 watching their backs. Back on Yavin, we see a quick check-in with Saw and Mon. Really, this is just reminding us where he is in Rogue One. It's not much more meaningful than that. He's got the oxygen mask from what we can see, but he doesn't use it. But we see he's fully in his paranoia now. Maybe Luthen was a stabilizing force that's now gone. Who can say? But they hear Cassian's coming in hot, and Mon seems tired, and Bail seems furious. For people who remember Rogue One stuff, this episode has a lot of names that make me go. For example,
Admiral Raddus requested you join him.
You're lucky Merrick's away.
Your contact with Saw Gerrera.
Tivik.
Tivik's on Kafrene until tomorrow.
But Cassian returns to Yavin with like a whole battalion ready to gun him down.
Who else is with you? Hello.
But he's back and ready to tell them what he's learned. The weapon, Krennic, Kyber, Erso. And we've got those familiar faces around the table as he tells them everything. But the information is not received well. Bail is the one who's the most suspicious of them. Dramatic irony, I guess. He doesn't trust Luthen or Clea or their source. He thinks it could be a trap, and his suspicions are not even unfounded. They're just wrong this time. Cassian is confined to quarters, but he's allowed to visit Clea in the infirmary, and he tells her he's doing what he can. He's also informed that Tivik has been trying to contact him, and he tells Wilman the news about Luthen, and they have a good hug. We also get to see Vel and Mon catch up, and Vel has this line about Cassian.
He should stop saving people.
But Mon asks Vel to talk to Cassian and to give her read on what's happening.
Help me believe him.
So Vel and Cassian share a drink for the dead.
Gorn. Nemik. Taramin.
Cinta.
I think this is the only scene these two have this season. I wish there was more. This dynamic feels lived in, like old war buddies. She asks about Luthen and the story, and all Cassian cares about is that he died for it. And he says Clea wouldn't lie about it. Afterwards, Vel says he should get in touch with Bix.
She's safe, isn't she?
That's what I hear.
He says she wouldn't be safe with him, and Vel says she might disagree. Cassian says maybe after he'll think about it. And Vel tells him not to wait because dramatic irony makes us sad. We also get this scene of Partagaz listening to Nemik's manifesto, and I need to know who put it on space YouTube. How else did Partagaz get a hold of it? It was given to Cassian, but I can only conclude he gave it back to Vel at some point and she uploaded it to space YouTube for more people to hear. I think that's something she would think about, not Cassian, but we hear those lines again.
Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks. It leaks. Authority is brittle.
And as Partagaz listens to a stranger he'll never know read him for filth, he asks one of the other guys who they think it is. And they don't know, of course. Partagaz is being arrested for bungling Clea's capture. He asks for a moment alone, and so this guy, who has known him for quite a while by all appearances, steps outside so Partagaz can follow the example of many real-world fascists. But meanwhile, my girl Clea is having a bad time. She unhooks herself from all the machines in the medbay and just starts wandering out into the woods and rain. I don't know if she's even clear on what she's doing here, but the impulse moving her seems self-destructive. And of all people, it's Vel who finds her. A Vel who has been gentled in many ways by her experiences and immediately just puts her coat on this woman and guides her out of the rain. And they talk. Vel says she's sorry about Luthen, and Clea says it had to be done. And she says Luthen always told her to know her way out before she went in, and she doesn't know who she is anymore. And Vel responds with Luthen's old code phrase.
I have friends everywhere.
And she says Clea is among friends. And she leaves Clea to rest up in her tent so she can talk to her cousin, and I need 30 million fanfics about these two traumatized women cuddling until their problems and grief are slightly more manageable. I need this. But Draven comes to Cassian and tells him that his contact Tivik is waiting for him at the Rings of Kafrene, and will only speak to him.
Do you trust him?
I try.
Mon and Draven then go to convince Bail to please go along for the plot of Rogue One. On Cassian's last morning before, he dreams of his sister Carrie, before being woken up by his droid friend, just like in the first episode of the series. And K2 says,
"The man you do not like is here."
And Bail tells him that he's got his orders and he's heading out. When Cassian asks what changed, Bail tells him,
"If I die fighting the Empire, I want to go down swinging."
Cassian says he and Luthen are a lot alike, and Bail says, "May the Force be with you," and then we get the final sequence of the show. A reprise of the Past Present suite stirs up. On the soundtrack, this version is labeled Past Present Future, all the more fitting for an ending that's still a middle. And we watch Cassian slowly make his way through the camp, and we see everyone that's left. Soldiers march through the forests of Yavin. Among them are Melshi and Pau, who will die on Scarif in a matter of days. We see Wilman sitting down for breakfast with his girlfriend, and Saw looking out on the horizon of Jeddah. Clea watches some rebels carrying supplies through camp and smiles, just a little, seeing what she helped build. And Krennic gazes upon his creation, which will kill him very soon. We see Vel and Mon talking, and Perrin day drinking with Davos Skalden's wife, and Dedra Meero is sobbing in Narkina 5, and I say good riddance. And Cassian walks. He sees that Force healer from before, and they share a moment. And finally, with one last look, he boards the shuttle with K2SO, and they fly for the Rings of Kafrene. And then we get one last bit. Back on Mina Rao, Bimo is playing with his droid friend, 10 out of 10, and Bix is out in the fields, holding a baby, her and Cassian's child, and she smiles, looking peaceful. And when I say I cried, I don't think it was entirely for the right reasons. It's quite probable that some of my reaction to the ending would have been a little less intense if I had not spent so much time thinking about how I wanted the show to end. Building up expectations can be a detriment to enjoying a final product, especially since showrunners aren't mind readers. Maybe they weren't thinking quite as much as I was about this one thing, but I know I'm not the only one disappointed in this ending, so I don't think that's entirely the issue. Also, if you're somebody who likes the ending and the baby, My friend Kai wrote a spirited defense of it, which I will get to. I just need to be unhinged about it first. Because I'll be honest here, if you watched my Rogue One and Andor Season 1 videos, you will know I have been a Rebel Captain shipper since 2016. I know, throw me in the fire. A lot of people's takeaway from this ending seems to be like, oh man, when Cassian's hugging this other woman as he dies in Rogue One, he's obviously thinking about Bix, which, I don't know, I just don't like that idea at baseline. But I do also think, even with my trashy shipper brain set aside, that that is such an oversimplification of a character who had a rich and complicated life. Like, yeah, he's probably thinking about Bix and Jin and Marva and Brasso and K2. He might even be thinking about Wilman and Kino or Melshi. He's lost a lot of people, and in that moment, he's being forced to leave a lot of people behind. In the Everybody Lives AU we all love to play in, I don't personally think he would automatically go back to Bix. She left him, didn't tell him she was pregnant, which according to Gilroy, she knew she was pregnant and that's why she left. Like, I think her reasons are perfectly understandable, but I can see things from the other side being really hurtful. I think Bix will always be family for Cassian, whether or not they ended up in a relationship. But I'm still holding out for Cassian and Jin in the universe that exists only on AO3. I'm sorry, kids, that elevator scene rewrote my brain chemistry forever. Now, shipping rant aside, let's get to the real stuff. I'm glad after everything she went through that Bix is alive and that she's found peace. My God, she deserves it. I was positive she was going to be dead as doornails, and I'm so glad she didn't get fridged like Cinta. But what happened to the mechanic running radios and blowing up Imperial torturers? What happened to her choosing the rebellion? Well, she's been lost, so we can just have Bix as a mother in the most, and I say this without affection, capital S, capital W Star Wars moment of the show. Star Wars has always been obsessed with bloodlines, with this guy being the son of this guy and this gal being this guy's sister.
You are a Palpatine.
The final beat being Bix having had Cassian's child feels kind of basic to me, especially when the show never established that either Cassian or Bix wanted a family. Honestly, Bix being back on Mina Rao could have still worked. The rebellion can't always just be Yavin. Like Luthen said, it's everywhere now, and that guy on Mina Rao worked with Luthen. Why couldn't Bix be running radios on Mina Rao with the baby? Of course, the bigger question is why she didn't go back to Ferrix. We never learned what happened after the events of Season 1, but I assumed that the people, the community, and all those traditions still remained, albeit probably under Imperial occupation. So why not go stand looking picturesque with her baby there? But for people who like what one Tumblr user I follow has been calling the wheat baby, my friend Kai has this to say on the matter. Rest is rebellion. Healing is rebellion.
Everyone has their own rebellion.
Especially in the face of an unrelenting machine that wants their enemy to be so spent they can sucker punch them down. Finding comfort and small pockets of joy with your partner in the face of tyranny is rebellion. Bix was Cassian's last small pocket of joy, comfort, and grounding, and he was hers. And Bix sacrificed her literal home with Cassian so he would stay and fight. For my friend Kai, they did have a happy ending. It's manifested in their child peacefully sleeping on his mother's chest, the same heart that Cassian absolutely heard every morning they woke up together. Gilroy said he wanted a hopeful ending, and in the end, we have different visions of hope. I am still gonna make jokes about the baby.
I would not like to see the baby.
But I wanted to include my friend's perspective because I do think he makes some excellent points. I just can't let go of what I imagined for the ending. Because Andor has always been a series that's been focused on death. Since the death of its protagonist is a preordained event, almost every character we're watching except for Mon Mothma seemed doomed by the narrative, and we've been losing people since day one, same as Cassian. Part of the tragedy of Rogue One seemed to be that all these people died and would go largely unknown and unremembered. There is no medal ceremony for these people like there is for Luke Skywalker. These are the people history forgets in favor of the easy heroics of Jedi and so on. Then in Andor, we learned that at least Cassian had people, not just family and loved ones, but an entire tight-knit community that seemed ready and willing to come together for every one of their community. Remember Pegla from Season 1? In the first episode, he's yelling at Cassian about a ship, and then in the finale, he's hugging him and saying, "I'm sorry about your mom," and helping him sneak into the hotel where Bix was captured. Ferrix was a whole realized place that we are reminded of constantly throughout Season 2, not just with their sort of call sign Stone and Sky, which you may remember from Marva's funeral.
Stone and Sky, Stone and Sky.
But then, at the start of every arc, as we're told what year it is, we hear the chime of the Time Grappler's bell. I always assumed we were coming back to Ferrix, and for most of Season 2, it seemed my theory was well supported by the text. And I said this back in the Season 1 video. In a post-credit scene, I want Brasso, Bix, or whoever makes it on Ferrix to lay a brick for Cassian. Because after watching Andor, we now know, unlike the rest of the rogues, Cassian had people. And I want there to be people left who can mourn him and honor his sacrifice. I know it's silly and he's fictional, but it would mean a lot to me.
Tony, I know you're really online with this stuff. There's still time to put something on the Blu-ray. There's still time, Tony! I'm in your walls!
The arms of an angel.
Lady Night the Brave laying Cassian Andor to rest because Tony Gilroy wouldn't. Frankly, I assumed they would do this because it seemed to me like good storytelling, and these are a talented batch of writers and directors. All the other things I wanted for Season 2, I didn't actually really expect them to do. I would have loved it if they got Riz Ahmed, Mads Mikkelsen, and Felicity Jones back, but I didn't expect that. But commemorating Cassian this way made so much sense, I didn't understand why they wouldn't do it.
You missed! How could you miss? He was 3 feet in front of you!
It reminds me of, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Bambi 2. Specifically, it reminds me of Sin Squad's excellent video on this Disney-produced midquel that was then taken on by creatives who wanted to tell an interesting story that was deeply fixated on death. In Bambi's case, the death of Bambi's mom, and in this case, the death of our protagonist. But a point that she makes in the video is that audiences have reeled from the lack of closure over the death of Bambi's mom for years, to the point that in Lion King, the creators specifically showed us Mufasa's corpse to provide some amount of closure by allowing the audience time to grieve a body rather than the absence of one. Rogue One is tragic because there is never time to grieve these characters. They are simply killed off one by one in service of the mission and the message that will save the rebellion. This idea is continued throughout the series, where every time Cassian loses another loved one, he's never given time or space to grieve. He simply has to keep moving.
Faster, Bambi! Don't look back! Keep running! Keep running!
God, the Bambi 2 parallels are wild. I feel deeply unhinged right now, but also like a big brains genius. But the importance of allowing us, the audience, and allowing the characters time to grieve is something the Sin Squad discusses at length in that video. It will be linked in the description. So just imagine that after this, we watched the credits, and then we saw the brick being placed by Bix, or by Willman, or even by Vel. All people that we know outlived Cassian and cared about him, finally closing the loop on this character and providing us closure for his death that I don't find just by throwing a baby at us.
You can't throw a child at a wall.
Paramore, shut your face!
Gilroy said this ending was an attempt at something hopeful rather than something bleak, but the existence of a baby and the furthering of Cassian's bloodline doesn't automatically make me hopeful. A movie I saw this year that I think captured the depth of hope and beauty that can be found in grieving and in grief rituals was, as it happens, 28 years later. I won't go into too much detail, but the existence of the Bone Towers as a method of mourning was, in a very strange way, beautiful, and this scene,
"Find a place for her, best one of all,"
made me sob the way I thought Andor Season 2 was going to. And Andor, by only running for 2 seasons, never had the time to further interrogate Cassian's relationship to Kenari or Marva's removing him from there against his will. The show never had time to let him learn the fate of his sister, even if it was just that Carrie had died. I feel an absence there. I suppose Cassian never got closure with that either, but all this to say, Cassian clearly loved Ferrix. As far as we know, Clem and Marva were the only parents he'd ever known, and they both were laid to rest there. So Cassian being at least spiritually, if not literally laid to rest on Ferrix. I mean, obviously, if Cassian was vaporized on Scarif, there would be no ashes to put in his brick, but the spirit of it, mourning him according to the traditions he knew, would have been beautiful. Seeing the people who loved and outlived him, the family and community that he had remembering him, I think that would actually be very hopeful. History may forget Rogue One, but Ferrix would remember Cassian Andor. Even a single shot of a brick being placed would have been enough for me. But beyond my beef about the ending, many people have observed the parallels between this show and real life are terrifying. On a personal level, it has broken my heart to see the government purposefully shut down protests against the atrocities enacted by the Israeli government under the guise of combating anti-Semitism. Then our president was tweeting out shalom following the illegal and unsanctioned arrest and deportation of Mahmoud Khalil to an ICE facility, and getting on stage and saying crap like this.
In some cases, a fine banker, and in some cases, Shylocks and bad people.
And there has been an increase in violence towards Jewish people, which may well be spurred along by this appearance of us being favored by this wretched and rancid government, while that self-same government enacts horrific violence on immigrants of color, claiming it's a way to prevent terrorism. They are purposefully trying to pit groups against each other to stop us from uniting under a common cause. We don't have to like each other in order to find common ground, and trying to work only with the people who have achieved your personal idea of moral purity means you have less people to get the job done. You are not looking for a partner here, you're looking for a partner in crime. And for legal reasons, as a US citizen at the moment, that was a joke. Yes, I'm angry too. I'm full of enough incandescent rage to light up a small city, but we really need to direct our rage to the people currently doing mass deportations and drone strikes on Venezuela. Like, I know who I voted for, and I'm sure we'll be talking about harm reduction during the next election cycle, but we can't let reasonable discussions turn into fodder to further divide us. Like, I haven't even touched the crackdowns on trans rights, the attempts to dissolve valuable public works like libraries, basic education, and PBS, dissolving or debilitating most of, if not all, departments like the Environmental Protection Agency or the Food and Drug Administration, which makes sure food is safe to eat, and any other agency you can think of. I've also lost track of how many countries I think we've threatened war against at this point. It's exhausting to live through, and it's exhausting to write about. And Andor tells us over and over again, if we waste time fighting each other instead of fighting the people that are actively trying to kill us, then all that happens is more people die, and it's such a waste. One thing I love about this show is that it stresses over and over again, everyone has their own rebellion. As Lizine said, I don't care if you fight or lay rose petals in the street or hide in the basement. We see that even small acts, like 2 workers blocking access to a room in a government building, or the words of a gentle Gorman bellhop, or the scribblings of a kid with big ideas can make bigger waves than one might ever imagine. Star Wars has always been a series that addresses us where we are now. Unlike Star Trek imagining that gay space utopia, Star Wars has always imagined a galaxy that is only so far, far away from our own. And something I find comforting is that, in the end, no dictator, despot, or fascist lasts. No amount of power or money protects them forever.
Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks. It leaks.
Even if it's just the natural rigors of time, they aren't immortal. They die, and we get to spit on their graves. But remember that removing a dictator is just the first step. We still have so much work to do. So keep doing the work. And to lightly bastardize the words of Dylan Thomas, we will not go gentle into that good night. We will rage against the dying of the light. So get active, get loud, and get together. In the words of the poet Amanda Růžičková, we love in colors they never learned to see, a spectrum too wide for their narrowing minds. We kiss with the fullness of history on our lips, hold hands with ghosts who once whispered, survive, survive, survive. And we do. We will not shrink. We will not soften. We will carve our joy into each day, stand tall as banners they cannot tear down. Let them call it rebellion. I call it living. So remember that revolution happens because love exists, that the reason for revolution is empathy, And remember that rebellions are built on hope. Remember that there is always hope. And most of all, remember that we have friends everywhere. So if you want to watch this video without Star Wars noises censoring my swears and annoying effects and audio filters on 20 to 30 minutes of this video, you can watch it unfiltered and uncensored on Nebula. Or you can watch Abigail Thorne's incredible play The Prince and Jessie Gender's Identities. All of this is on Nebula, a creator-owned streaming service where creators are free to explore ideas which don't work on an ad-supported platform like YouTube. And it's where hundreds of creators are making exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. For example, you can find ad-free content and early releases from creators like Jacob Geller, FD Signifier, Princess Weeks, Mike the Snare, and Maggie Mayfish. And for the month of January, we're offering 50% off an annual subscription. So use the link go.nebula.tv/LadyKnightTheBrave to get a year of Nebula for just $30. That's go.nebula.tv/LadyKnightTheBrave to get a year of Nebula for $30. Thanks! I hope one day I can stop apologizing for how long these videos are taking. Thank you to all of the patrons who were supporting me paying rent during these long gaps. Truly, I want to get on top of things this coming year. This video was just a hard one for a lot of reasons, and yeah. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.